This Saturday in Miami, the rematch, the revenge? Maybe, maybe not, but certainly a time to set the record straight. When these two fighters first met, a highly touted, undefeated young prospect entered the cage, a striker with a fan friendly style, photogenic look, and a certain intangible charisma. A few minutes later, the undefeated record was gone in shocking fashion, and the prospect had to rebuild. Now, years later, they meet again. Though they have taken very different roads to get here, both have changed, arguably improved. They are different fighters than they were the first time they met, but will those differences add up to a different result? But enough about Joanne Wood versus Maryna Moroz, too. Welcome to the Sherdog Radio Network preview for UFC 299 O'Malley versus Vera 2, which takes place this Saturday, March 9th at Kaseya Center in Miami, Florida. I'm your host, Ben Duffy of Sherdog.com, and with me, as always, is Keith Schillen, executive producer of the Sherdog Radio Network. Keith, how are you doing this evening?
Yeah, I'm doing good. We've done these shows so long. I was going through the phone, my guy. What fight is he talking about? Because I know he's not talking about the main event. I know his jokes. It was so obvious because you said, undefeated. I'm like, Marlon Vera wasn't undefeated when O'Malley beat him, right? Because O'Malley beat him, right? He's undefeated.
Oh yeah, of course.
Right? He didn't lose.
Oh man,
I'm doing good. How you doing, man?
I'm doing really well. We are, talking here on Sunday night, just a day removed from the recap for UFC Vegas 87. The jump in quality and level of anticipation from that fight night, which, I mean, it was already just another fight night, but ended on kind of a couple of weird, disappointing fights, to this card. I mean, we say this a few times a year, but for me, this is the kind of card that reminds me why I fell in love with this sport in the first place, why at its best, MMA is the best sport in the world, and yeah, just why it's fun to do this for a living. My question for you is, this is the UFC's third pay-per-view of 2024. We've already had UFC 297 and 298, and at this point, the UFC 300 card appears to be pretty much in final form, barring injuries. Is this the best card on paper for the UFC so far this year?
Dude, it might be. That's a really good question, and I'm going to cop out. I mean, if we were going grades, I'm giving this an A. I mean, when you compare this and you compare, UFC 300 coming up, it's just as good on paper.
Mm-hmm.
If you just switch the numbers, like, I think both of them are missing that. I got an A. Like, we want UFC 300 to be an A plus. Like, we want, super huge fight. Stop to bottom. When you see these like websites, the Sherdog forums, and then fans saying, 3 months ago, give me your UFC 300 card, and it's got Conor versus Nate and Brock Lesnar versus Stipe and John Jones versus Francis and God. And get these like fantasy ones that just doesn't happen. It's like someone's like, hey, tell us a story about yourself and make a movie, and you're like, who would play you? And then they're like, oh, Leonardo DiCaprio would play me. Like, oh, who would play your wife? And you're like, oh, I don't know, Kate Hudson. And who would play your best friend? Oh, well, Matt Damon. And like, well, where's his budget? Yeah, they got all the biggest. Oh, my dad would be Al Pacino, and my neighbor would be Morgan Freeman. So we kind of do that. So, but what this card has, it just has depth. I mean,
I love where you're going with this. Can I say something about the depth? This card has 14 fights. Normally, when there's a 14 fight card, you and I are both kind of like, this is too much of a good thing. 12 is the perfect number. But here, if you told me to cut this card from 14 fights to 12, I mean, maybe I cut Ibon Cutelaba versus Philipe Lins, and I cut Wood versus Moroz, but neither of those fights is that bad. There is no garbage on this card.
No, absolutely not. I ever see this. I mean, I said a lot when people talk about what's the greatest college basketball lineup ever, and they go through the I think it's the 01 Miami Hurricanes, and they talk about like, running back, they had Willis McGahee and Clinton Portis, and I think it was Frank Gore, and they had Jeremy Sharkey, and they had Kellen Winslow, and they just like Vince Wilfork and Ed Reed, and they just keep going. It's like stack. John Vilma, like, it's just unbelievable. Like, holy crap, how does this one team have this?
Paying them
off. And then
by paying them off.
Oh yeah, that's true.
I mean, that's how, but
yeah, they had NIL deals before that was going on, but and you're like, oh, is that the greatest team ever? And then it's like, wait a minute, you just told me all the guys they had at all the different positions, but it's like, who's the quarterback? I was like, I don't know, who's the quarterback? Could it be the best team ever? That's why I feel like the UFC 300 and even this one is like, it is deep. I mean, holy cow, how can this be as loaded as it is? But there's missing that one. So, like, you asked me, how to give this grade. I'm going to give it an A. You're like, oh, why isn't it an A plus? It's the cut's loaded. It's got everything. Yeah, you got big personality in O'Malley, and Marlon Vera. You got prospects. You got veterans we like. You got fights like Almeida and Blaydes on the prelims. I mean, that could headline.
Dude, if that fight ends up being a title eliminator, are you shocked?
And it's especially if Almeida wins.
Yeah,
and wins impressively after. I mean, it wasn't impressive against Derek Lewis, but if he submits Blaydes quick or knocks him out or something like that, yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, I know heavyweight, so I don't want to go down too far down that road because of John Jones and all that situation going on. But the one thing it is to me, it's missing kind of the reason why it's not an A plus. It doesn't have that second title fight. If Dustin Poirier and Saint Denis was like third from the top, and you filled in title fight,
anything
A plus,
yeah, or
just throw Bo Nickel on the card. Let's give me an A plus.
And I mean, Bo Nickel is on 300, but
I had to find a way to get Bo Nickel in early. So, what would you get? What would you give the card a grade?
No, I'd give the card an A as well. And the same for UFC 300. It is stacked top to bottom. And both of them might be as good as the UFC can do right now, because barring Conor McGregor being available for either of these cards, which isn't really in the UFC's hands, he needs to cycle off whatever he was on to make Roadhouse. I mean, you saw the dude in that. He's like 190 pounds of like solid muscle. And short of that, O'Malley, Poirier, and Gaethje are the biggest stars they have right now, and they're on these cards. So this might have been the best. Short of Jones, and that didn't line up either.
He's injured, and I mean, it was kind of like a perfect storm for them. Let me ask you this: so when O'Malley fought Sterling in Boston, the big narrative was, does O'Malley even deserve the title shot? Because he had that really close, controversial win over Parisian, and I kind of feel like Vera's in the same situation because he's on a 1-fight winning streak over Pedro Munhoz, who's not the highest ranked guy.
No.
And it was a very controversial, debated decision. If he didn't already have a previous win over O'Malley, I don't think he'd even been in this discussion.
I agree. If not for the fact that these two have history and that O'Malley clearly wants it back and wants to leave no question, I don't think Vera would be in the top 5 people on Sean Shelby's phone list. Like, you always talk about how far down the list does he have to call. I don't think Vera would be in the top 5. 135 is not short of people on long winning streaks.
Yeah. And Sandhagen getting hurt definitely helped him. The guy that could argue just based on merit, like, hey, I just beat this guy recently, I deserve it over him. So some of it was good timing. He actually sold it in the night O'Malley won. He was setting it up before it even happened. So I'm not trying to listen. Just because the guy didn't should be the number one contender. Moroz should be the number one contender. Sure. That doesn't mean he doesn't have a real legit shot of winning. I want to be very clear when I say that.
Absolutely. We'll talk about it when we get to it, but I mean, he beat him the first time, and while that's not a repeatable path to victory, it's not like some flukish thing where O'Malley slipped on a banana peel. It wasn't a no contact injury. Anyway, I don't want to jump 2 hours ahead and start previewing that fight already.
Actually, we're going to start from the top and go bottom today.
Any other general thoughts on this one before we jump into the prelims?
No, it's a good card. I'm excited for it.
Same here. First up on the UFC 299 prelims is a women's flyweight matchup between Joanne Wood and Maryna Moroz. Wood, the 38-year-old Scot by way of Las Vegas, is 16-8 overall. She is 8-8 since joining the UFC as a strawweight standout in Invicta FC. She is coming in off a win. She took a unanimous decision over Luana Carolina in her only fight of 2023, almost exactly a year ago at UFC 286. Prior to that, she had been on a 3-fight losing streak, though in her defense, they were against Lauren Murphy, Tyler Santos, and Alexa Grasso, all three of whom were champs or title challengers. She'll look to make it 2 wins in a row here and get a measure of revenge against Moroz. Moroz, 32-year-old Ukrainian, is 11-5 overall. She's 6-5 in the UFC. She's on a 2-fight losing streak. Fought most recently last August at UFC 292, getting choked out with a first-round buzzer beater by Karine Silva. So she's looking to get back on track here. She is favored to get it done. She is a 2-1 favorite, in fact. Moroz minus 210, Wood plus 170. Keith, obviously, I had my little fun during the intro here. These two fought all the way back in 2015. Both were actually undefeated at the time, but Moroz was making her UFC debut and was very unheralded, whereas Wood had star power there for the taking if she could keep winning like she had been in Invicta, and instead Moroz armbarred her in like 2 minutes. How different are these two fighters in good ways or bad, and who do you see winning this one?
Yeah. How about Maryna Moroz back-to-back fights being rematches that she's had, because she also fought Karine Silva back in the day.
Oh, way back in the day. Yeah. Wow. Before she was even in the UFC.
I mean, I'd say I was more excited for the fight back then based on their ages and stuff. I mean, Joanne, she's 38. And I'm always wonder where her commitment is. I mean, she's helped running a team now. I mean, she's married to the coach, and even if she's not the coach and all that, like, I understand the wife of the coach. Like, you're doing the fundraiser, she's behind the table serving the pizzas and stuff. Like, I get it. So it seems like she has a lot of options right now instead of just being an MMA fighter. Now, when we see her fight, you kind of get the sense we know what she is at this point. She's a Muay Thai striker with pretty good volume, works behind a jab, never been a heavy hitter. She does well to get a battle in the plum clinch where she can strike within close. But the biggest part of her game is going to be her kicks. Kicks are a massive part of game. Kicks everywhere. She's got a good high kick, good body kick. She likes teep kicks up the middle, kind of pushing her opponent back, half kicks. I mean, really, kicks everywhere. She has a lot of defensive holes. She stands up tall. She pulls her head straight back. She will look for a takedown, but I wouldn't really call her much of a wrestler, and her defensive wrestling is bad. I mean, she's been taken down 8 times. I mean, so not 8 different fighters in the UFC so far, and she struggles to get on the bottom. I mean, she's got terrible submission defense. Moroz have already submitted her in the past. Jennifer Maia subbed her, Andrade, Santos, Eunice. I mean, they all have subbed her at times. Moroz, she's also a high volume, I'd say, kickboxer too. Works behind the jab, works the body. She's more of a point fighter than a power puncher, and that's because she throws a lot of arm punches. She also has some defensive flaws, particularly keeping her head straight on the center line and lacks head movement. Good calf kicking game. She actually checks leg kicks, which is surprising in general, just because many people don't do that in MMA. Good chin. She's been in some firefights, especially like the Bueno Silva fight. Was a really, really fun action fight, though she was hurt to the body in that fight. I like her in the clinch, and she's an underrated grappler, underrated wrestler. I actually would say she might even be more of a grappler than she's a striker. She likes to. God.
I would completely agree there.
Yeah, and we don't think of it like that. She likes to catch kicks, solid takedown defense herself. If she's on top, good top control. She showed great ground and pound against Bueno Silva. Though, it is concerning that she was subbed in her last fight against Karine Silva. But I also like her cardio. So she's been inactive. There was like a long block where she wasn't fighting, but it seems like she's been a lot more active lately. This is a really close fight. Like, I think the betting line is off. It's just because I'm not that comfortable in Moroz where I would favor that big against anybody in the UFC. I'm not very high in either at this point. Wood might be the better fighter from distance due to those kicks, but I think Moroz should have the edge in the wrestling. Like, I'm going to go like a coin toss with not much confidence. I say the wrestling edge is enough to win very close rounds. Give me Moroz by decision.
Yeah, I feel a lot of what you're putting down there. I think I've said this about Joanne Wood before, but at this point, I do think of her as kind of the female Dwayne Ludwig, like a very well schooled, experienced Muay Thai striker that can still be outstruck in MMA just by fighters who are either bigger, more athletic, more aggressive. Like Bang Ludwig was a literal ISKA, champ. Uh, Wood. I remember Joanne Wood had Jack Slack making articles about her when she was like 4 fights into her professional career because he was just using her and using gifs of her as examples of like this is some of the cleanest like footwork and the most textbook kicks I've seen in MMA, but just not quite the top level athleticism to make it work against the best in the world at 115 or 125. And to take the Ludwig comparison a bit further, has just never developed on the ground. And there was always and there's this thought about almost any striker who crosses over in MMA young. Oh, give them enough time. They'll work with wrestlers. They'll be in the gym. They'll get to the point where their ground game is at least not a liability, even if it never becomes a strength. That was never the case for Ludwig. He was always vulnerable on the ground. That's always been the case for Wood. Like she's scrappy and offensively she knows what to do. So if she's on the ground against someone who's completely hapless, she can actually get them in trouble. But against any halfway decent grappler, just defensively, she runs into trouble really quick. I completely agree with you. I think Moroz's best weapons are on the ground as well. She's someone who I bet thinks of herself as a striker, certainly presents as a striker, but at least at this level of the sport, her best routes to victory are on the ground. She is inconsistent. Like her beating Mayra Bueno Silva, who just barely fought for the bantamweight title, like nobody will ever be able to take that away from her. And it was a close fight, but there was no smoke and mirrors. I thought she legit beat Bueno Silva, but then she's dropped some fights to not great fighters. Jury's still out on Karine Silva, but I do think Silva has a lot of upside. I don't take a lot from that in terms of how she's going to look against Wood. It's hard to have too much faith in either of these fighters. Obviously, Moroz has had some layoffs. Her country has been hell on earth for like 2 years now, whereas Wood has the opposite problem. Like her home life, I bet is just absolutely, wonderful and idyllic. And maybe it's hard at age 38 to, get up, do the miles, get punched in the face when you have so many other things you could do. But yeah, I worry about Wood's commitment to her career at this point. Frankly, I was a little surprised when she fought Luana Carolina last year. I kind of expected her to quietly announce her retirement.
Yeah.
Have a kid and start teaching Muay Thai at Syndicate, or keep teaching Muay Thai at Syndicate.
Mix up some smoothies at the little smoothie bar in there.
Yeah, putting some protein and like some spirulina powder in that.
Like
No,
protein muffins for everybody.
Yeah. Here, I do favor Moroz. For as long as it plays out on the feet, I actually think it's pretty close. And Moroz has the ability to take it to the ground where she definitely has the advantage. Give me Moroz by decision here as well, but I think I feel a little more strongly about it than you. And if Wood's mental engagement, if her conditioning are not on, if her durability has slipped at all as she pushes 40, I could see Moroz getting a stoppage late as well, like just tapping out an exhausted, frustrated Calderwood in late second or third round. But I'll say decision as well. Next up on the UFC 299 undercard, we stay in the same weight class, just move over to the other locker room as CJ Vergara takes on Asu Almabaev in a men's flyweight matchup. Vergara, the 32-year-old Texan, is 12-4-1 overall. He is 3-2 since joining the UFC as a veteran of season 5 of Dana White's Contender Series and a former Fury FC flyweight champ. He's on a 2-fight win streak right now. Fought twice last year, won both of them. He knocked out Daniel Da Silva in the second round back in March. Then in July at UFC 291, took a unanimous decision over Vinicius Salvador. He will try to make it 3 in a row against the rising prospect Almabaev. 30-year-old from Kazakhstan is 1-0 in the UFC. He made his debut last August, choking out Ode Osborne in the second round. Prior to that, I mean, he's on a 14-fight win streak overall now. He'd been a standout and probably would have been a near future title challenger in Brave CF, but instead he got the call up to the octagon where, as I mentioned, he won his debut last year and will look to go 2-0 at the expense of Vergara. He is heavily favored to do so. Almabaev, easily the highest favorite on the card, minus 500. Vergara plus 325 on the comeback. Those of you who are enjoying this Shullen and Duffy preview via your podcast platform of choice instead of on YouTube, just missed Keith giving his wow. That's quite the line, eyebrows. So I will kick it to you. Tell me to what extent you believe in Almabaev as a super prospect, if you think he is one at all, and how you see this fight going.
Well, I mean, he's definitely a solid addition to the UFC, and he looked good, against Ode Osborne and everything. So, I just, man, negative 500, like, man, I would be the worst at setting betting lines. I definitely thought he'd be the favorite, but Vergara is not a bad fighter. No, so Vergara he's not a great athlete, so that's one that stands out for me. But he really makes up for it with just being a pressure fighter. I mean, he's constantly moving forward. He fights out of both stances. He has a lot of volume. Now, when he gets to the pocket, he really wants to unload some big shots. Now, he can telegraph because he loads up way too much. But he's got a good kicking game. He's got some hard kicks to the body. He likes to close the distance and battle in the clinch. He showed us some great striking when he dropped Bruno Correa with knees to the body inside the clinch. Due to his aggressive style, he's going to eat some shots. He got hurt by Jacob Silva and he got hurt by Daniel Estrada. I mean, he's been rocked a lot, so that's not good. But he's a tough dude. He's just going to keep coming. He's not a very good offensive wrestler, and he hardly ever wrestles. And he isn't really much a submission threat. So like that kind of threat is out. Got some weaker takedown defense. I mean, he was quickly subbed by Tetsuro Taira, but he's got great cardio and great heart, and he'll keep coming. Like, so if Almabaev doesn't blow him out, I mean, he's going to make it a grimy fight and do his thing. Now, Almabaev, he's a very athletic fighter, so he's a huge advantage in the athleticism. He's also a pressure striker. Now, he does a lot of dumb stuff, like he'll throw some spinning attacks. But I like when he just throws hard shots, kind of because he wants to wrestle and he uses it to kind of force his opponents to lift their hands up and then he'll time something underneath. He's got some good entries when he gets to fight that to the ground, good top control, but he will often sit in his opponent's guard and kind of stall out. But though he was passing the guard in his last fight, so I like that. He's got some good back takes and he's a big submission threat. He's got 9 subs on his record. On the feet, it can be really fun on the feet. We got 2 high output strikers, but one of them is a much better wrestler. I think Almabaev gets the takedowns. I think he controls for majority of the fight. He could get a submission. Vergara is pretty tough. So I'm gonna go, like, I'm not going on the limb by taking the negative 500 favorite, but I'm gonna say Vergara is tough enough and finds a way to not get subbed. I'll say Almabaev wins by decision.
Yeah, I like the breakdown there. Vergara, definitely an overachiever. I love, like, in the middle of you kind of breaking down Vergara's strengths and his liabilities. Hits hard, but sometimes telegraphs things by overswinging. Not much of a wrestler, never uses it. Not a good defensive wrestler. Vulnerable on the ground. I almost was tempted to go. You could just sum it up by saying, he's trained by Pete Spratt. But but that's not fair because not fair because, like, Pete Spratt runs a good team in San Antonio, and it's not a reflection, like, his team that he runs now is not a reflection of what he was as a fighter. I always thought it was.
Don't forget, he beat Robbie Lawler.
He sure did. Yeah,
that was the Robbie Lawler was never going to be a champion after getting beat by Pete Spratt.
Hey. I just always thought it was funny that his nickname was the secret weapon when, like, his game was the least secret thing ever.
Yeah.
Like, he's a real good Muay Thai striker. He has, like, great power. And if you get him down, you can rear naked choke him. Like, that's like the least secret thing ever. Anyway, I see why Almabaev is as big a favorite as he is, because this only needs to be as close as he lets it be. I think if he's measured on the feet and kind of stays within himself, uh, it would take a lot for Vergara to actually catch him with a haymaker. And he always will have that safety valve that I think he could take Vergara down pretty easily. And if not just backpack him and choke him out in 30 seconds, at least if he takes Vergara down, Vergara is going to be on in pure defense mode for the next 2 minutes on the ground, trying to escape, trying to get a stand up as Almabaev tries to advance position and is just pelting him. So with that in his back pocket, even if he does mess around on the feet, unless he just gets clocked with a single kill shot, I think this is his fight to win. I also agree with you that it's likely to go to a decision because Vergara is very tough, very scrappy, has very good cardio. So it won't be one of those things where Almabaev can just take him down a couple times and he'll be so exhausted that he can tap him out in the second round. So I'm saying it goes to decision as well, but I'm expecting this to be pretty one-sided. Next, we head to the heavyweight division for the debut of Robelis Despaigne. Despaigne, the 35-year-old Cuban, is 4-0 as a professional mixed martial artist. He fought most recently in December, knocking out Miles Banks at Fury FC 84 in just 4 seconds. He's 3-0 in Fury FC in less than 30 seconds of total work. His entire professional career barely adds up to a round of cage time. So anybody who tells you that they have a great solid scouting report on Robelis Despaigne, slap them upside the head. What we do know is that he is a former Olympic bronze medalist in Taekwondo, even if that was, 10, 11 years ago at this point. And he converted to MMA fairly recently. And at least at the level of Titan FC, Fury FC, he's taken to it like a fish to water. He will get his chance to make a big splash in the UFC pool at the expense of Parisian. 34-year-old Michigan native is 15-7 overall. He is 2-4 since joining the UFC as a two-time veteran of Dana White's Contender Series. He won on season 2, beating Greg Rebello with a spinning back fist. That wasn't good enough to get him signed because back in season 2.
Side note, I saw Greg Rebello today. He's a great dude. And his son's doing youth wrestling. So good luck to I don't know how he did today, but good luck to Mr. Young Greg Jr. I don't know his name, but young Rebello.
Greg Rebello, top 5 Southern New England heavyweight, of all time.
He's great. Sure. He's a top 5 dude. He's a great dude. And he was
interesting. Yeah. Anyway, so he knocked out Greg Rebello on the Contender Series back in 2018. Back then, getting a first-round knockout wasn't an automatic signing, so he went back and won like 5 more fights everywhere. Then came back on season 4 of the Contender Series, knocked out Chad Johnson in the first round. That was good enough to get him signed. And since then, as I said, he's 2-4 in the UFC. Fought most recently last August at UFC on ESPN, Luque versus Dos Anjos, where he was tapped out in the first round by Martin Budai. He's on a 2-fight losing streak. He'll look to snap that here. He is decidedly not favored to do so. Despaigne, another one of the biggest favorites on the card. He's minus 400, Parisian plus 300. Let me tell you what I know about Robelis Despaigne. And considering that, again, I have like 5 minutes of tape and really dude, he spent like 20 seconds in cages last year and went 3-0. He is absolutely titanic. Robelis Despaigne is right up there. Like the second he walks into the cage, he is neck and neck with Alexander Volkov for biggest heavyweight on the roster. He's listed as 6'7". He is huge. He's got a wingspan. I mean, he looks like an NBA small forward.
He's got a wingspan of 86 inches.
More than John Jones,
84 and a half. That's nuts.
Yeah. And despite being 35 and being a heavyweight, he is athletic. He is fast. He's fluid. And while, when you think of Taekwondo, you think of it as a kick-heavy art, all of his knockouts in MMA have been with punches, is absolutely crushing power. He has that thing where, and I'm not saying he's Alex Pereira by any stretch, but it's the Alex Pereira thing where he has super long limbs, but he has good enough technique that when he catches people with things that are tight and short inside, the power is just absolutely devastating. And at least the level of people he's been taking on to this point have not been able to withstand it. Like he's blowing them away in 4 seconds, 3 seconds, 10 seconds. I don't think Despaigne is a future champ in the UFC. I mean, he's already 35, even at heavyweight. That's not great. We don't know anything about his gas tank. We don't know anything about his ground game, but I do know that they couldn't have done much better than Josh Parisian as a setup opponent for him to make a big splash and to start to be able to generate some hype, because Parisian likes to slug it out on the feet. For the most part, that's his best option. He's not much of a wrestler. He's defensively porous. I mean, he did knock out Greg Rebello, but that was like his third spinning attack in 90 seconds. Heavyweights, especially heavyweights with the athleticism of Josh Parisian, should not be doing that. Yeah, Parisian is not going to have any option in this fight other than to march down a guy in Robelis Despaigne that is both longer than him and more capable of wreaking havoc on the inside. There's just no safe place for him here. And he's probably just going to walk straight into a right hand in the first minute. Again, not saying Despaigne is a future contender, not saying he's a future champ by any stretch. He'll be a whole hell of a lot of fun to watch for as long as he's around. But I think he knocks out Josh Parisian in the first round. And if I were a betting man and there were some subdivided props here, within the first 60 seconds is definitely not outside the realm of possibility. He's proven that. Give me Robelis Despaigne by some absolutely nasty first round KO.
Yeah. I just want to say how professional you are, dude. It's so poetic when you were talking about this. You mentioned the word waters, splash. I think you said ocean. You said pool. I mean, it just you give the people what you want, because you want people thinking about, like water park. Josh Parisian walk around in his sunblock on his nose, walking around the water park.
Yeah, absolutely. I want him in with the sunblock on his nose, but wearing like a red Speedo that looks like something the Minoa would have worn, like just embarrassing his kids. Like, yeah.
Yeah, you
Dad.
said something. Yeah, you said something else, and I was going to jump in with a joke, and I forgot. I had a really good joke, and I usually when I have a good joke, I write a little note so I can go to it. And I forgot what I was going to say. Josh Parisian. So, he's a really weak athlete. I mean, his hands are slow. His volume has dropped over the years, which is concerning. He throws. He works behind a jab. He loves spinning attacks. As you mentioned, his defense is an issue. I mean, he stands up tall, pulls his head straight back. I mean, dude got battered by Martin Badai. He's a weak wrestler. I mean, he was taken down by Parker Porter, by Dontel Mays, by Jamal Pogues, by Martin Badai. Mays was past his guard, Badai stubbed him. So, I mean, he's a huge issue on the ground. If he lands on top, he's a big dude. So he can kind of just hold his opponents down by just being a big massive guy, but his gas tank is bad. I mean, he gassed against Parker Porter, gassed against Almeida, gassed against Jamal Pogue. So, like, a lot of things aren't going well. Now, yeah, you talk about Robelis. The dude's fought 5 minutes and 13 seconds his entire career. So you're absolutely right. If one of these sharps, minty bets is telling you you can't miss, I watched this, and this is a true story. I watched his entire career. I watched every single one of his fights.
Oh, yeah.
I watched his entire career during the same bowl of Cheerios.
They didn't even get soggy, did they?
I filled the thing in Cheerios. I put the milk in it. I'm eating it with, I'm taking notes with my right hand, scooping the Cheerios with my left hand. And that guy's entire career, there's a couple, 6 or 7 Cheerios still at the bottom of the bowl. So, how do I say his last name?
Despaigne. I say Despaigne. Like,
Despaigne, okay.
Yeah.
So Robelis, Cheerio, Despaigne. Dude, his last 3 fights were combined 19 seconds.
Yep.
Not 19 seconds each. No, combined 19 seconds. Like, my Cheerios joke was longer than his last 3 fights combined. I mean, the dude's beating up nobodies. I mean, you talk about he's 6'7". He's got a cut to make heavyweight. He's got this huge wingspan. Taekwondo Olympic bronze medals. Take those. Now you said, oh, that's what you said. You said Taekwondo is guys known for, being elusive, and that's what people think of Taekwondo. That's not what I think of, Ben. So speak for yourself. When I think of Taekwondo, I think of all the parents who waste their money sending their kids to Taekwondo when they should just sign them up for wrestling. That's what I think. But sorry, all you guys out there, just to try to help you out. What I've seen of this guy, again, I'm not going to be super confident. I've seen 5 minutes of his fighting. He springs at his opponents. He hangs his hands low down by his side. He's got fast hands. I mean, he's got serious power. He throws everything he has into every one of his punches. Like there's no setup shots. Crushing high kick. He's got some mean leg kicks. I haven't seen anything from the offensive grappling, but to his credit, he did stop 2 takedown attempts in his MMA debut. They weren't the best technique, but regardless, one thing I know he will have is because of his long legs, he's going to have that kind of tall man's hard to take you off my feet. You normally get one leg up. I can still stand up, unlike most people. I have no idea how good this Spain guy is. Nope. But I do know that Parisian isn't very good. So I'm with you, man. I'm going to bet on potential over experience. I say Despaigne pieces up Parisian and ends up with a big shot. I agree with you. I'll say he does in the very first round. So give me Despaigne by first round TKO.
All right. We head now to the middleweight division for a matchup between Michel Pereira and Michal Oleksiejczuk. Pereira, the 30-year-old Brazilian, is 29-11 with 2 no contests overall. He is 7-2 in the UFC on a 6-fight win streak overall, though he is just 1-0 at middleweight. His entire first 9 fights of his UFC run took place at welterweight. He finally gave in to the laws of physics, if not biology, and moved up to 185 pounds, where he made a successful debut last October, knocking out Andre Petroski in just 1 minute and 6 seconds. He will look to make it 2 in a row at the expense of Oleksiejczuk. 29-year-old Pole is 19-6 with 1 no contest overall. He is 7-4 with 1 no contest in the UFC. Notably, he is 3-1 since moving to middleweight, though in his case, he came from the opposite direction, moving down from light heavyweight, where he frankly looked talented but a bit undersized. He fought most recently in August, his only fight of 2023, knocking out Chidi Njokuani late in the first round after a back-and-forth scrap. Your favorite in this fight, Keith, is minus 150. Your underdog plus 120. Who are they?
Pereira is the favorite.
You are correct. Pereira minus 150. Oleksiejczuk. Pereira minus 150. Oleksiejczuk plus 120. And if you took somebody that didn't know MMA, or at least didn't know the current UFC roster, you showed them these 2 guys on weigh-in day, and you asked them to guess which of them moved up from welterweight and which one moved down from light heavyweight, I don't think they would guess right.
Absolutely. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Yeah. Like Pereira could be like Paulo Costa's cousin.
He could be. At 170, sometimes we say a fighter looks like a comic book character or a cartoon character. Pereira didn't even look like a realistic cartoon character. At 170, he looked like, like there's a human being that is built like that and moves like that. It's freakish. And Oleksiejczuk at 205 looked a little soft. Even at 185, he's not. It's not beach muscle on him, even if he is effectively a decent athlete. Obviously, I was wrong about Pereira, but I've been happy to be wrong. After he blasted Danny Roberts in his UFC debut and then went to lose his next 2 fights in the UFC in stupid ways both times. Just gassing himself out stupidly against Tristan Connolly, a middling lightweight, and then getting himself DQ'd against Diego Sanchez just by doing stupid crap. I was like, all right, well, this guy will be fun for as long as he lasts, but he'll never be a contender.
Sure.
He'll just, he'll be a fun sideshow. Not only has he pieced together an impressive run, but he's done it in ways that his regional crew did not hint at. He's not the kind of guy that you would have expected to have 3-round cardio, but he's on a 6-fight win streak, and 5 of them went into the 3rd round. He all of a sudden has become a decent wrestler. I mean, he doesn't have the cleanest technique in the world, but he's got the Jacare type wrestling where I'm fast and powerful enough that I've learned 1 or 2 entries, and I don't even have like any chain wrestling, but I can pick you up even if you sprawl properly and slam you on your head, which he's done to several opponents. He's become, and he's done it without completely abandoning the fun stuff. It's like it's been a great thing to be wrong about, and despite it all, he's still just 30 years old. Like, it's just wild. He has like 11 losses because he has a bunch of just crazy, weird losses in weird Brazilian shows when he was like 22 years old. Uh, here, I mean, he's still a kickboxer by preference. He still has those little tweaks to his game. You can see in his footwork and some of the kicks he throws that he has a capoeira background, even if he's not doing, spinning handstand, helicopter kicks anymore. Uh, good power in his hands, really hard kicks. When he uses his kicks enough, I think they might be the best part of his whole arsenal. Just they're fast, they hurt really bad, and he's willing to throw them to multiple levels. He'll throw them to the legs and body to set up something upstairs, either a punch or a head kick. Now that he's decided he's not above wrestling from time to time, I like that he uses that as either a change of pace to set up his striking better in the future, or when he feels he just has the advantage there. And for a guy that, again, clearly was just trying to make the world's craziest highlight reel when he got to the UFC, that's pretty impressive. That's the kind of thing that not a lot of fighters change about themselves. Oleksiejczuk is almost the opposite of that. He's been what he is since he's been in the UFC. I've underestimated him a few times as well, just because he looks unassuming. But, he's a good boxer, like good technique, nice power that comes from just solid technique and having his feet under him rather than over swinging on everything. He's a better athlete than he looks like at 205. Like I thought he was surprisingly quick. Here, it's tempting to take the upset here. And honestly, I think some of it will actually hinge on whether Pereira decides to try to take Oleksiejczuk down and whether he'll be able to. If they just hang out on the feet and have a striking match for 3 rounds, I think of this fight as pretty much a pick 'em. I agree with the line here. I agree that Pereira should be a slight to moderate favorite, but I think it's because he has more routes to victory. It just remains to be seen whether he embraces them. I'm cautiously going with Pereira here. I think it'll be a whole hell of a lot of fun. Um, you know, I like when Pereira deals with somebody who has good weapons and is composed on the feet, like Oleksiejczuk is. I like when Pereira is forced to adjust, go to his plan B. I'm picking that he does so here. We see lots of kicks out of him. We see him try to keep things a little outside of Oleksiejczuk's preferred distance, or when they go all the way inside, he goes for reactive takedowns and just tries to, fight an all the way out, all the way in type fight, wins 2 out of 3 rounds. Give me Pereira by decision.
Yeah, dude, I think this is one of the best fights on the card. I'm really excited. I like both guys. I mean, Pereira, you mentioned. I mean, the guy's a really big dude. The guy looks like a freaking superhero. And he showed that he fixed his cardio, but he should have always been at middleweight. There's no need to drain your body. He's got those long arms. You mentioned, dude, he's an incredible athlete. Like explosive. He's got quick hands. He marches forward. He cuts the cage off well. He's been throwing a lot of feints to set up his power shots, and he hits really hard. I mean, he showed it that he can strike from the outside against Almabaev. He uses flying knees. I love how he uses them, and I've said this about him before, but he uses them offensively, to knock guys out, but also defensively to kind of warn coming in what you might eat. He also uses it to close the distance. And kind of stop his opponents want to pressure him is kind of way to kind of stall him back. I love his just get in the pocket, throw a step in knee, got some great kicks. He likes those bleak kicks, he likes teep kicks. I love that you went to his wrestling. He's an underrated wrestler. I mean, he beat Chaos Wade just by wrestling. He played it safe for a guy who'll do like a freaking looks like Rey Mysterio in there jumping off the cage and shit. And his cardio has really come a long way. I mean, I don't think it's an issue now at middleweight. I mean, he beat Santiago Ponzinibbio by a guy who's known for being a gritty, tough third round kind of win guy, and it was Pereira that was pressing the action late in that fight, and a lot of it just has to do with he stopped with all the other stuff. He's not, he's not, William Knight is the only guy I saw. for a guy who doesn't have cardio, when he was fighting Jorge De Castro in an organization called Reality Fighting, and it was an amateur fight, and in between rounds he started breakdancing, but like Beheaded was pretty close to doing that. Like I wouldn't be surprised he like does the worm at somebody to attack them. I will say this, like, yeah, he's a better fighter who doesn't do that, but like, I don't give a shit about him being a better fighter. Like, we have a whole bunch of guys who could fight like that. Like, I'm not saying you have to, run up the wall every single time and Anthony Showtime Pettis kick someone in the face, but I'd like a little bit more of that. It was more fun. Now, Oleksiejczuk is a guy that, he's looked good lately. I mean, southpaw, he's constantly on the gas. He's really good at forcing his opponent on their back foot and not letting them escape. He puts a good output on them. He tends to kind of burst forward, throwing combinations. He loves winging his overhand left, where he uses to kind of close the distance to get to the pocket and then fire off some of his other big shots. One of the best body punchers in the UFC. So if Pereira gets himself tired doing something stupid or just being too explosive, I can see Oleksiejczuk start landing that body shots and slow him down. Really underrated power. I mean, the dude can crack. He has some holes defensively, which is a big issue against someone like Pereira. He trusts his shin way too much. He's willing to like walk through shots to land some of his own. His offensive wrestling has come a long way. Like he will actually mix in a takedown or two here and there, which was not the case when he first came to the UFC. Not a great defensive wrestler. I do, and I've said this before, but I do think it's a little overreaction because how many times he got taken down by Jimmy Crute, and again, a guy he was giving up a lot of size to. He also struggles to get off from the bottom, and he's been subbed a lot in the past. So that the ground game is still a big concern for me. So as far as prediction goes, this fight's great. I mean, such an underrated fight on the card. It won't get a lot of press or anything like that. But the winner is going to take a huge step. The winner's going to fight a ranked opponent in middleweight next. They have to. I mean, the Pedro would be 2-0 in middleweight. Oleksiejczuk would be a nice run in middleweight. I'm pretty high on either. So Pedro could turn this into a wrestling out and just win that route. Either guy can land a big shot in the feet. I love Oleksiejczuk's pressure. I think the pressure begins to take over. I think he forces Pedro onto his back foot. I think he eventually lands a big shot and follows up with some big strikes, particularly maybe some body shots, and slows down Pedro. And I think Oleksiejczuk is going to keep the train rolling. I'm going to say he pulls off the upset. I see Oleksiejczuk wins by second round TKO.
All right, we have our first disagreement on the UFC 299 card, but we agree that this is one hell of a matchup. Next up, we head to the light heavyweight division for a postponed match between Ion Cutelaba and Philipe Lins. These two had been scheduled to fight at UFC Vegas 80 all the way back in October of last year. It was postponed during fight week because Lins fell ill. It's now been rebooked for UFC 299. Keith and I talked, and even though it's been 6 months, neither man has fought since then. So my scouting report on this one hasn't changed. Neither has Keith's. The odds, I'm going to say, are right around what they were at the time. I still think it's Cutelaba around -150, Lins around +120 or so. But sit back, relax, enjoy this ancient 6-month-old footage, and we'll be back in a few minutes. The UFC Fight Night 229 main card soldiers on with the heaviest fight on the card, unless Joe Pyfer or Abdul Razak Al Hassan really screw something up. It is a light heavyweight matchup between Philipe Lins and Ion Cutelaba.
Grant Dawson has missed weight a couple times.
We'll get to him when we get to him. There aren't many people that have missed weight in 3 different weight classes in the UFC. We'll see. Anyway, Lins, the 38-year-old Brazilian, is 17-5 overall. He's 3-2 in the UFC. That's the bad news. The good news is that he's 3-0 at light heavyweight. He came to the UFC as a heavyweight, as the outgoing PFL heavyweight champ from that first season. Immediately lost his first 2 fights in the UFC at heavyweight. He dropped to light heavyweight after that, and since then, he is perfect with wins over Marcin Prachnio, Ovent St. Preux, and Maxime Grishin. The most recent of those, the Grishin fight, was back in June at the Cara France versus Albazi UFC on ESPN card. He will look to make it 4 in a row and continue to breathe new life into his UFC career at the expense of Cutelaba. 29-year-old Moldovan is 17-9-1 with 1 no contest overall. He is 6-8-1 in the UFC. He is coming in off of a win. He knocked out Bozer at light heavyweight back in April at the Holloway versus Allen fight night card. Prior to that, he had lost 3 in a row to Ryan Spann, Johnny Walker, and Kennedy Zechikwu. So Cutelaba is looking to build a win streak of his own. He is ever so slightly favored to do so. Cutelaba is minus 150, Linz plus 120 on the comeback. Keith, there are a lot of reasons this fight is terrible. Philipe Linz.
Fast forward to the end.
I'm happy that I'm happy that he's carved something back out of what had been a pretty disastrous signing by the UFC. I mean, I was cautiously excited when they signed him. He had won that first PFL title back at the end of 2018. He was 32 years old. He was a smallish, athletic-seeming heavyweight, and he'd beaten some halfway decent guys, like beating Jared Rosholt and Josh Copeland. That's about as well as you can do outside of the UFC and Bellator. That wasn't too bad a look. And then came to the UFC. He missed all of 2019. He came back and didn't look particularly impressive against Andrei Arlovsky or Tanner Bozer. And I said, what happened to this guy? Since then, he's dropped back to light heavyweight. He's won a couple fights, but he's now 38. And he went from being what I thought was an athletic heavyweight into just another unathletic light heavyweight who's pretty good everywhere. Just any of the excitement is kind of gone. But if he wins 4 fights in a row in this division, he's going to be somebody's problem. And he's taken on somebody in Cutelaba. I know that there's a long list for this distinction, but Cutelaba might be the biggest underachiever currently on the UFC roster. And I say that as a guy who's going to have to talk about Bobby Green in 45 minutes or so.
Yeah.
Cutelaba, given the physical tools he has, given some of the component skills he has, like he's not perfect at everything, but he's a very good wrestler when he wants to be, and he hits like a truck. There's no reason this guy should be under 500 in a division as bad as light heavyweight. But he is still just capable of a race to the bottom of whatever fight IQ contest you want to have against anyone. I take heart from the fact that he's still not even 30 years old, but at the same time, he's not especially better at 29 than he was at 25. He still makes horrendous mistakes. He still doesn't have a great gas tank. And again, I'm not a betting guy, but I would steer clear of Iwan Cutelaba fights on general principle. Certainly Cutelaba as favorite fights on general principle, because it's not just, oh, he makes terrible mistakes from time to time. He makes terrible mistakes in every single fight, and it's just a question of whether his opponent's able to take advantage. Tanner Bozer wasn't. Cutelaba just was too fast, hit him too hard, lamped him. Everyone else, like every time he loses, you can almost always trace it back to a single blunder he made. Here, I've kind of got Linz in the slight upset. I don't think Linz should be able to take Cutelaba down. Despite the fact that Cutelaba is the career light heavyweight and Linz is the former heavyweight, I think Cutelaba is going to be the stronger guy, and he certainly has more of a wrestling background. Like, I don't think Linz should be able to take Cutelaba down, but I think the fight's probably going to end up there at least a couple times. I think Cutelaba hits much harder than Linz on a strike-for-strike basis, but if they decide to engage on the feet, I think Linz is probably more defensively sound and will land greater volume to the point that unless Cutelaba hurts him really bad, Linz will be the one winning rounds on the feet. Give me Linz in a slight upset here to just kind of win a frustrating decision off of you on Cutelaba. And if anything spectacular happens, it's either going to be Cutelaba just knocking Linz senseless in the first 3 minutes and making me look real dumb, or Cutelaba making some spectacular mistake and getting caught in something like a standing rear naked choke in the middle of the fight. And it ends up in one of the weirdest highlights of the year. So give me Linz by decision with nothing spectacular happening. But if something spectacular does happen, well, I just hope it tumbles my way.
Yeah, what Jim Cutelaba is. He's been one of those guys who retire. We're going to miss him. I think the thing that is most surprising to me is that, Cutelaba seems like he's been in the UFC forever, and he's only 29. Like, that's, especially in like that weight class, one of the ones where it's, it's common for top guys to be older. Yeah, he's definitely an underachieved because he's surprisingly well-rounded. He's a pocket boxer who can get in there, throw a lot of hard hooks, really, really big left hook. But you mentioned he can fight like a madman at times, telegraph his shots, load up on everything. But in fairness, recently he's fought a lot more, conservatively, very more controlled. He does have serious power. You said he hits like a truck. He can grind in the clinch. He's been wrestling a lot more lately, which I like because he's had his wrestling background. And there was a stretch where he wasn't wrestling, but I mean, he took Devin Clark, who's a wrestler himself. He took him down 8 times. He took down Justin Jacoby 9 times. Took down Johnny Walker. Took down Kennedy Nchukwu. Took down Tanabosa. He's on top. I mean, you look at him; he's physically imposing. He can ground and pound. The problem is he doesn't have the best control. I mean, a fight like Johnny Walker, he took him down, and then he lost position, looking to advance on the ground and find himself on the bottom. He got caught in a submission against Walker. You mentioned he's gassed out so many fights. To me, he's a front runner, right? Everything is going well. He's a beast, but when he faces adversity, he tends to crumble. Linz has looked a lot better at light heavyweight than he did at heavyweight in the UFC. Not outside the UFC, but in the UFC. He still isn't a great athlete. His output is better at light heavyweight. He's a counter striker. I'd say he's got okay speed. He's got some pop against Ovan Samprou. He does throw some looping shots. Keeps his chin a little too high in the air for me. He's open to leg kicks. Tanabosa beat him up with leg kicks. He wrestles a lot more than you think, but he isn't a good wrestler. He's a black belt, but that doesn't mean that much to me anymore. I did 0 tape study on this one because, that's what happens. You can run out of time. I'm not high in either. I'm going to go to Cutelaba. He's the better wrestler. He hits harder. Plus, he's just more fun. So give me Cutelaba by, I say it's an ugly one. I say Cutelaba by split decision.
Bantamweights take the cage next as Pedro Munhoz faces off against Kyler Phillips. Munhoz, the 37-year-old Brazilian, is 20-8 with 2 no contests overall. He is 10-8 with 2 no contests in the UFC. He fought most recently last August at UFC 292, dropping a unanimous decision to Marlon Vera, who fights for the title later on this same evening. He'll look to bounce back from that against Phillips. 28-year-old Arizona native is 11-2 overall. He is 5-1 since joining the UFC as a veteran of the first season of Dana White's Contender Series, where he won, but he wasn't signed. I mean, he knocked a man out in 45 seconds and didn't get signed, because that's what Dana White's Contender Series used to be like. If you knock someone out in 45 seconds on Dana White's Contender Series now, you are signed before you get back to the locker room. But yeah, that was not the case.
Decision now, you get signed.
Yeah, if you lose, you might get signed.
Yeah, that's right.
But it was not the case in 2017, so he had to go back and win a couple fights, at least in LFA. He's been in the UFC since 2020, and he's 5-1 since then. He's on a 2-fight winning streak, those being wins over Marcelo Rojo and Hani Barcelos. The most recent of those, the Barcelos fight, was last August at UFC on ESPN, Sandhagen versus Font. So he'll look to make it 3 wins in a row here. He is comfortably favored to do so. He's minus 220, Munhoz plus 180. Keith, part of me expected Pedro Munhoz to be retired by now. He just looked so shop worn. He had some ugly losses. He'd lost like 4 out of 5 fights and was well on his way to losing 5 out of 6. But he's shown some signs of life in his last couple fights.
Yep.
Is there enough life left in him to make things interesting for Phillips here? Who you got?
Oh man, this is a tough one. What did you say the odds were?
Phillips is minus 220, Munhoz plus 180.
That's nuts. that's fucking nuts. I mean, yeah, this is a hard fight to pick, and Pedro Munhoz is crafty, and that's the thing that really gets overlooked in a lot of fights, and he's a high volume striker who tends to march forward. Kind of his whole game is trying to force his opponent onto his back foot. Pace and output is kind of a tool for him. He beats guys with pressure. I mean, he lost against Jose Aldo because he refused to step on the gas. He was a little, seemed like he was shocked by who he's going against. Kind of like, what's the word I'm looking for? Like, whatever. Just like, oh wow, I'm facing Jose Aldo.
Starstruck.
That's it. Sorry, thank you.
Yeah.
But when he's on his game, he works behind a good jab. He follows that into the pocket, unloads some power shots. Always willing to eat a shot to land one of his own. He's got a solid chin, and he's been in many battles. Now, Aljamain Sterling kind of teed off on him. He tends to square up a little bit, making himself a big target. But he has some power. I mean, he's got some power. He's got a really good kicking game, mean kicks to the body, some of the best calf kicks you'll see. Though he doesn't check leg kicks. I mean, that was something that Aljo had a lot of success for. He also struggled with the speed of Dominic Cruz, and that's always because he's been a minus athlete, especially for a guy who's been ranked in that division. It's really weird for a guy to not be the best athlete and still, be one of the best in the division. He doesn't wrestle often, but when he does, he's a really underrated wrestler. I like how he used it against Chris Gutierrez. Phillips, I mean, the guy's extremely athletic. He's elusive. He moves well. He's got great footwork, slip and rip striker with good head movement. He's got fast hands. He isn't the most technical boxer. Relies a lot more on his kicking game, and he's got a really good kicking game. I love his calf kicks. I love that he uses athleticism, where he'll. I mean, I've never been really big into the flying stuff or spinning stuff, but just the way he moves, he flows really well. He's an underrated wrestler. He's got both good entries and body lock takedowns, good at winning scrambles, looks to advance position on top. He's hard to hold on if he's taken down. But because he's such an explosive guy, we've seen him kind of fade late due to those explosive movements. I think the odds are way off. I mean, to me, I think this should be a pick 'em. Phillips is a much faster guy. He hits harder. But Munhoz is more polished. He's more technical. He's a little more gritty. I feel back and forth on this one. Man, I was really on the fence, and when you read me the odds, I understand why Phillips is the favorite because of the things that happened with Munhoz, but I want to remind something. Many people thought Munhoz beat Marlon Vera, who's fighting for the title in his last fight. So I'm gonna go another upset. I'm gonna stay on the upset train. I say he's gonna have to weather an early storm of Phillips. I say he does. I say he weathers the early form. He picks up the pace late when Phillips starts to slow down. Maybe wins the second, wins the third. Maybe it's really close. But I'm gonna say Munhoz wins by split decision.
I love this because as I was kind of thinking about this fight and the different ways it might possibly play out, and I agree with you. Like Munhoz had a hell of a fight with Vera. He beat Chris Gutierrez, which is a great win. I mean, Gutierrez is really, really good, and I was really, really wrong on that one. I expected Gutierrez to kind of put a nail in Munhoz's coffin. I expected him to beat Munhoz that night, for him to be on our cut list and maybe even retire in the cage. And instead he beat him and almost beat Vera. But as I looked at how I saw this fight playing out, and I agree that, Phillips, like, occasional bouts of sloppiness on the feet and his tendency to slow down late in fights pre- present Munhoz's best routes to victory. And I asked myself, am I really about to pick a 37-year-old bantamweight to win a fight by, like, durability and pulling ahead late on a 28-year-old bantamweight? And I'm with you. I think I understand why the line is what it is, but make this at least the first of the unanimous Shillen and Duffy upset picks here. I'm scared. Munhoz is, once again, a half year older than he was last time. He's 37. It's all going to come crashing down at some point. And given some of the wars he's been in, when it comes crashing down, it's all going to fall apart fast. And if that's on Saturday, this pick's going to look ridiculous. But give me Munhoz to win a decision here by winning the second and third rounds, and just, yeah, prove that while his nickname, the Young Punisher, may get increasingly ridiculous with each passing birthday, he's still got enough left in the tank to compete against even, like, top 15-ish UFC bantamweights. Next up, we have a lightweight scrap between Mateusz Gamrot and Rafael dos Anjos. Gamrot, the 33-year-old Pole, is 23-2 with one no contest overall. He is 6-2 since joining the UFC as a former two-division champ in KSW. He ruled over their lightweight and featherweight divisions. He's on a two-fight win streak, those being a decision win over Jailton Turner last March at UFC 285 and a fantastic scrap against Rafael Fiziev in September that was cut short when Fiziev suffered a nasty, kind of freakish knee injury in the second round. Nonetheless, it goes down as a win for Gamrot, and he looks to make it 3 in a row and cement himself at least a fringe title contender at the expense of the former champ Dos Anjos. The 39-year-old Brazilian is 32-15 overall. He's 21-13 in the UFC. Good news is he's 21-13. He's 5-5 at welterweight. He's literally a 500 fighter at welterweight. He's 16-8 at lightweight, a run that saw him, get all the way to the title. That's the good news for him. The bad news is that he hasn't actually fought at lightweight in a while. His recent run, at least over the last 2 years, has been at welterweight. He fought Vicente Luque last August at welterweight, dropping a unanimous decision over 5 rounds. That was his only cage appearance of 2023. But here he's moving back down to 155, and he is a decided underdog. Gamrot minus 375, Dos Anjos plus 285. I definitely get why Dos Anjos is the underdog here. He's a 39-year-old man who's been through some wars. He's one of those guys that, on top of being a former champ, which obviously is fantastic, is kind of creeping up on a lot of UFC records just by pure longevity. He's another of those guys with, this is a 35th UFC fight, so he's getting up there in terms of just cage time, significant strikes, takedowns, all those type of things. He was a pure Nova União guy early on, where, good grappler, top position specialist, very, very strong, surprisingly athletic, and he was already a pretty good wrestler, and he became a very, very good wrestler. And his striking developed as well. I think the effectiveness of his wrestling made his striking just that much more effective. I mean, you look no further than him beating Anthony Pettis and giving Pettis very few chances to uncork the highlight reel offense just because of the pressure. He, more than just about any elite fighter I can think of, like in the history of the sport, it hinges for him on the wrestling. He thrives when he's the better wrestler. He struggles when he is not. And that's not the case for every fight. I'm like, BJ Penn or Israel Adesanya, they didn't have to be the better wrestler to thrive. They just had to be good enough to stay on their feet. But with RDA, it really is, he has to be the better wrestler. It has to be his option to take the fight to the ground if he wants it there, or to keep it on the feet if he wants it there. If he's the one who decides where the fight goes, he tends to prosper. And that was the case at welterweight as well as at lightweight. Just at welterweight, he ran into too many guys that were just too big for him. and kind of bullied him in the way that he would bully lightweights. Like once he ran into the Leon Edwardses and, Colby Covington's, Kamaru Usman's of the world, they were the ones kind of bullying him around. At lightweight, he was the ultimate bully. Here, that's going to be a problem because Gamrot is an extremely well-rounded fighter. I think he's one of the more well-rounded guys in a division full of well-rounded fighters in the top 10, but he is a great wrestler, both in terms of like having good technique, having good physical tools. It's hard to believe this guy ever made featherweight in much the way we talked about Pereira versus Oleksiejczuk. If you put these two guys next to each other and said one of these guys used to be a welterweight and one used to be a featherweight, and you're looking at Rafael dos Anjos, like a 5'8", like little chunk of muscle, and Gamrot, who's 5'11", with like big wingspan and long arms and legs. Here, for as long as things stay on the feet, I think it favors Gamrot. He's a good boxer, good kicks, makes good use of his long reach. And while Dos Anjos has been a very effective striker over the course of his career, he is definitely slowing in his late 30s. And here again, where it all hinges on, I think Gamrot's the one who's going to decide where this fight takes place. If Dos Anjos wants takedowns, I think he's going to find them hard to get against Gamrot, or at least they'll end up turning into the kind of scrambles that Gamrot enjoys and thrives in, and aren't really what Dos Anjos loves. Dos Anjos likes to get a clean takedown, set up in guard, advanced position, be heavy on top, beat you up, and either like take mount or make you give your back. That's the Dos Anjos playbook. If he tries to take Gamrot down, I think it's going to turn into scrambles that wear out Dos Anjos first. And on the flip side, if Gamrot wants to take Dos Anjos down, he might not be able to easily or early, but I think Dos Anjos is likely to get tired faster, and Gamrot will have the takedowns for him there later. Because of that, I think this matchup really does favor Gamrot. Give me Gamrot in a pretty dominant decision here, and I think Dos Anjos is going to look old.
Yeah, I mean, the dude look old. I mean, the guy's 39. There's definitely not much time left in the organization, or if it is, it's not like top. I mean, the guy's down to the prelims now. Again, some of that has to do with just how stacked this card is, but obviously the trajectory of his career is going down and moving back down to lightweight. I really don't think that's going to do much. I think it actually might hinder him, if anything. And then, you said he's old, especially when you consider the amount of damage this guy has taken. I mean, he's fought everybody. He's been in some wars and 25-minute fights and all that. What he does well, he's a southpaw with, always had good volume, good tight boxing, attacks with combination. He's one of the guys who really loves to throw his like lead rear power punch, starting the combinations. He's got underrated power. He's been historically a great calf kicker. Likes to battle in the clinch. He doesn't mind a grimy kind of fight like that. Good dirty boxing. He's always been a great grappler. I mean, Rafi Fasivi hit him with some cool trips in their fight, but that might be fading. I mean, I was surprised at how easily out-grappled he was against Vicente Luque in his last fight. Now, if RDA gets on top, I mean, he's still got some good control. He's obviously a BJJ black belt, one of the most underrated overall grapplers in the history of the sport. He's got 10 submission wins. He still has good cardio. Like, that was one thing I thought was pretty well against Luque. He wasn't completely gassed. So 50, and that was also a 25-minute fight. A 15-minute fight shouldn't be an issue for him. You're right about Gamrot. I mean, the guy's a huge dude, great athlete, moves so well. He's also a southpaw. He's got fast hands, technically sound. He's accurate, throws tight shots. I love that he gets to the mid-range and unloads, but he likes to stay in that close enough where if he ever wants, he can still, attempt a takedown. Good footwork, cuts angles well. He switches stance in mid-attack, which I love. He has underrated power. I mean, it hurt Scott Holtzman, hurt Arman Sarukian. Although he has ate a lot of shots. I mean, Sarukian tagged him up. Cutelaba tagged him up in some fights. He's a really good wrestler, though. I mean, beautiful entries. He's so good at getting to the second level and cutting the angle, just diving through the hips. Other than maybe Beneil Dariush, he's been easily taken down everybody's faced. And sometimes even just diving in without a setup and still getting to his angles. His best entry is probably this single that he shoots and then he runs the pipe. It's really a thing of beautiful, beauty. Good at winning scrambles, good top game. I go back to like the Jeremy Stevens fight where he subbed him really easily. He will go for leg locks, which I hate, but he does use them to kind of create a scramble and get back on top. If you take him down, he's hitting Grambies and kind of getting his hips rolling. And he showed against Sarukian, he has a cardio to go to all 5 rounds. I'm going to say something that I think some people might disagree with. Even in RDA's prime, I think Gamrot would have been too much for him. To me, this is just the evolution of the sport. Gamrot's more well-rounded. He's faster. He's more technical. He's larger, et cetera, et cetera. It just, it just seems like you get the iPhone 10 and this is the iPhone 11, or iPhone 12. Like, everything gets upgraded, and I kind of feel like that's what Gamrot is at this point already.
RDA is pretty old. He might be like the iPhone 3, like when they still look like a candy bar, like just big rounded edges.
There you go. I think Gamrot puts on a clinic. I think he dominates RDA. I don't think his fight's going to be close. I think the line's not big enough. I thought Gamrot was going to be like negative close to 400. I can't imagine RDA beating him. I think RDA is so tough, so I don't think Gamrot gets a finish, but Gamrot dominates him. Gamrot by lopsided decision.
Second from the top on the UFC 299 prelims is a women's flyweight matchup between Katlyn Cerminara and Maycee Barber. Cerminara, the woman until recently known as Katlyn Chookagian, 35-year-old from New Jersey, is 18-5 overall. She's 11-5 in the UFC. She's 9-4 at flyweight. She started out her UFC run at 135 pounds, dropped to 125 as soon as that division was available. Since then, again, 9-4 with losses only to Jessica I in a very close fight back when I was, a ranked fighter, Valentina Shevchenko, Jessica Andrade, and Manon Fior. The Fior fight, that was her most recent appearance. That was at UFC 280 at this point, 18 months ago. It was October of 2022. Dropped a unanimous decision to the, super prospect, now contender. Prior to that, she had been on a 4-fight win streak. She returns here to face Barber. 25-year-old Colorado native is 13-2 overall. She is 8-2 since joining the UFC out of the second season of Dana White's Contender Series. She won her first 3 fights in the UFC, cementing herself as maybe, arguably the most promising prospect in her age range in the whole promotion, certainly in the women's divisions. That came to a halt with back-to-back losses to Roxanne Modafferi and Alexa Grasso. But since then, kind of quietly, she has piled up a 5-fight win streak, including a win in her last fight over Amanda Ribas that propelled her to the edge of the rankings. She'll look to make it 6 in a row and certify herself a contender like she always said she was going to be. She is favored to do so. Barber's minus 200, Cerminara plus 170. Well, if this fight had taken place last March, 6 months from Katlyn Chookagian's last fight, I would have been more comfortable picking her, because up until now, the best of the best could beat Katlyn Cerminara. Everyone else, not only did she beat them, but she tended to make them look kind of silly in the process. She just had the Surreal Gone thing where she was able to snake charm them into having a no contact sparring session at her preferred range and dropping unanimous decisions. It isn't always fun to watch. In fact, it was usually dreadful to watch. We rarely saw flashes of the ground game that theoretically, technically should be her best skill set. I mean, she was a jiu-jitsu black belt before she, really started developing her striking at all. But now she's a tall, rangy flyweight that has generally had this magical power to make other women fight her fight. Things that are concerning: she's been out for over a year. She's now 35 years old. Even at women's flyweight, that's definitely on the other side of the bell-shaped curve. Even more concerning, she missed weight against Mononfiore. If making weight was a problem back then, that doesn't get easier after a year and a half off. So maybe there are routes to victory open for Barber here that weren't before. The thing is, I'm guilty. I'm one of the ones that wrote Barber off when she lost to Modafferi and Grasso. In hindsight, Modafferi beating Barber was, by the strict numbers, the biggest UFC upset of the modern era. Like, I'm not saying it's as big an upset as some of the, but just in terms of the number line, and it took Barber like blowing out her knee in the first round for it to happen. And even so, I mean, it remained a competitive fight. And then the loss to Grasso has aged pretty well, considering that Grasso went on to win the title. It beat Valentina Shevchenko twice. Since then, all she's done is win 5 fights in a row over increasingly good competition. I mean, Miranda Maverick and Amanda Ribas are good wins. The weird thing is, I don't feel as though Barber is that different a fighter. Like, I feel as though she's still largely the same fighter she was when she was 20, 21 and first coming into the UFC. Like, it still runs off athleticism and aggression. She's, I think of her as kind of like a female Diego Sanchez. Like, it's
a good comparison.
She's not crazy like Diego Sanchez, but
I'd love for her to walk out with like a crucifix screaming yes,
or like doing the yes cartwheel.
Yeah.
And I hope she has more furniture in her house than Diego Sanchez. But she's a good wrestler, not in a traditional technical sense, but just the athleticism, aggression, persistence, good instincts, good. Like, I'm going to use the $5 word proprioception, where you're moving and you just have a very good natural instinct for where your body is in relation to the floor and to your opponent. Just good instincts that way. Nastiness that, we shouldn't have to traffic in these kind of like old cliches anymore, but nastiness that puts the lie to, everything we were supposed to believe about how women supposedly fought. Like, she's mean. Still not a polished striker. And more polished strikers can still, manage distance on her. She's not good at cutting off the cage. But I mean, she's in a wide open division, and she just, she's won 5 fights in a row by coming right at people for 3 rounds and just being kind of a rabid badger. Her best place, kind of like Diego Sanchez, is pounding on people out of scrambles that she created and looking for opportunities to, like take their back or take their neck. That's kind of what she is at this point. And now she's 25, so she's young, but she's not 20 anymore. This may be what she is as a fighter, but that may be enough. If she beats Katlyn Cerminara on Saturday, she's not far from the title picture. That would be like her third top 10-ish win in this 6-fight win streak. It's hard for me to call this fight because I just don't know which version of Katlyn we're getting. Again, Katlyn, if this was a year ago, this would have been tailor-made. She's exactly the kind of fighter that would frustrate Barber, just, and we'd be yelling at our TVs like, why is Barber doing nothing? Or, why is she trying to shoot takedowns from 6 feet away? Why is, she flinching when Cerminara throws jabs at her that come up like 18 inches short? I don't know if that's the Katlyn Cerminara we're getting anymore. But I'm confident enough in it that I don't like Barber as a 2-1 favorite here. I'm going with the upset. I reserve the right to change my mind if Katlyn Cerminara like blows weight again and looks or sounds disinterested. But the Katlyn Cerminara that I've seen is still too much for all but the best of the best, and Barber just isn't that yet. Give me Katlyn Cerminara to win a decision in a dreadful fight.
Yeah, in fairness, Katlyn Chikagian missed weight, not Katlyn Cerminara. So
there we go.
There you go. Yeah, this is. I hope this is a Maycee Barber type fight. That we're getting her in.
I'd love to be wrong. Believe me.
Yeah, like Barber's in her face, landing big shots. Cerminara's, striking back, and we get a fun battle. I don't know if that's true. I forgot that she missed weight. Cerminara. That's really surprising because say what you want about, and I'm sorry, I keep wanting to say Chikagian, and I apologize if I say that at all during this breakdown. Cerminara's always been a very professional fighter, like regardless of what so I'm hoping that just was like a blip, maybe one thing they changed something in their weight cut, or I don't know, maybe
it was in Abu Dhabi. That's weird.
Yeah, could be that. I don't know, maybe some women issues. I don't know.
Maybe.
She's a long and lengthy fighter, so she's always been big for the weight class. She's a good distance striker, uses footwork to work from the outside really well. Something that, as you get older, it could be an issue. It makes it tougher to do what she wants to do, but she's had good output. But we've said this before, she has that Holly Holm shadow boxing style where she's throwing more than is actually landing, and it just kind of looks good for the judges. She's a technical striker, though she lacks power because she throws mostly arm punches, but she works behind a good jab, throws punches straight down the pipe. She got big kicking arsenal, throws a lot of kicks, likes those like side push kick backs to kind of keep her distance. You mentioned that she comes from a BJJ background. When she uses her grappling, she's really good. I think she's one of the best grapplers in the division. They're very underrated in that aspect, though she has kind of abandoned her wrestling her last two fights, something we haven't seen of her. And we wonder, as she gets older, is that something that wrestling is hard? It's hard to do. And if you don't have the cardio and you don't have that great, it's just, it's not easy, but she's got good entries. She's got a heavy top game when she's on top. Though she, for such a good grappler, she only has one sub on record. You mentioned it that so many people have given up on Maycee Barber after a few setbacks, but she has looked better than ever. My issue with her is just she's a minus athlete. She's kind of plodding, flat-footed, but she's gritty, and she has her output has really picked up. She fights out of both stances, kind of keeping her opponents guessing, back and forth which angle she's going to attack from. She's pretty technically sound. She does need to change up her rhythm. She will attack kind of the same way, throwing the same combinations. I've said that about it before, so she can kind of get picked up in that. She is best when she just battles in the pocket. She can get in that gritty spot and just brawl it out. You mentioned she has this like mean streak to her, and she's only coming in her power. I still have a hard time because feeling like she's been in the UFC for like that. She's only 25, which is nuts. I was, if you had me guess, I was gonna say, oh man, I know she's been in the UFC a while, and I would have said like, yeah, I think she's still kind of young, 27, something like that. But only 25 is nuts. Her kicking game has come a long way. You asked like, what's a new wrinkle we've seen? I think it's just the impact of her kick. She threw a lot of like kicks in the middle of nothing landing. Now she's actually landing some kicks. She likes her front kick. She likes her question mark kick. She loves her high kick from both sides. She's taken a lot of damage over the years, though. Some of that is because she drops her hands and she's not quick enough to kind of avoid strikes. She's not that good of an athlete. She pulls her head straight back. She also prefers to be the one moving forward, marching for her land shots. And she's forced back on her back foot. Even like someone like JJ Aldridge, who she beat, she had success forcing her on her back foot. But she can get close to distance, get in the clinch. She does really good to outmuscle her opponents in close quarters. But she did this against Maryna Maverick, who's a really muscular, strong woman herself. Not much of an offensive wrestler, a weaker defensive wrestler. She will sometimes overthrow her shots and leave openings where she can get taken down. This happened against Jessica Ai. This happened against Andrea Lee. If she gets on top, that's where her mean streak comes out. She's got some scary ground and pound, really good with that. And she has cardio. I mean, her comeback win against Maryna Maverick was done very cardio. And you can never say what you want about her. She blew out her ACL against Roxanne Modafferi, but she kept fighting and showed some insane toughness in that fight where she could easily had an easy excuse to beg out of that fight. There's so many questions about I'm sorry, I've already forgot her new name. Katlyn Chikagian.
Yeah.
Cerminara, I'm sorry. Because she's been out for a while. What's her motivation when you've gone and fought for the title and didn't win, and kind of take one step back, then take a step forward, then take two steps back and take a step forward. She's kind of had that recently. It's hard to know what her motivation is, her inactivity, but she is bigger. She is the better athlete. She still moves better. I think she's faster. I think she can work from the outside. When Barber closes the distance, I think Chikagan can take her down. So Cerminara take her down. I apologize again. I'm gonna go with the upset too. I still, until proven otherwise, I still think Cerminara is a bad stylistic matchup for Barber. I'm gonna say Cerminara ruined some of the UFC plans. I think this is bad matchmaking. This is one of the fights, like, to me, I'm keeping Cerminara away from anybody I want rising up in rankings, especially in a division that's kind of really in need of new blood. I think this was a bad idea, and I think Cerminara is going to ruin it. So give me Cerminara by decision.
The top prelim of UFC 299 is a heavyweight clash between Curtis Blaydes and Jailton Almeida. Blaydes, the 33-year-old, I believe Oklahoma born, now living in Illinois. At any rate, Midwestern dude, 17-4 with 1 no contest overall, 12-4 with 1 no contest in the UFC. He lost his last time out. He fought just once last year. It was in the headliner of UFC Fight Night 222 in April, where he got knocked out in the first round by Sergey Pavlovich. Prior to that, he'd been on a 3-fight win streak over Jairzinho Rozenstruik, Chris Daukaus, and Tom Aspinall, even if the Aspinall fight was that freakish 15-second knee injury fight. He'll be looking to get back in the win column here, certify himself a continued title contender against the red-hot Almeida. 32-year-old Brazilian is 20-2 overall. He is a perfect 6-0 in the UFC since joining out of season 5 of Dana White's Contender Series. The last 5 of those 6 have been at heavyweight or at catch weights above light heavyweight anyway. He fought 3 times last year, knocking out Shamil Abdurakhimov in January, choking out Jairzinho Rozenstruik in the headliner of UFC on ABC4 in May, and taking a somewhat plodding unanimous decision over Derek Lewis in the headliner of UFC Fight Night 231 in November. He will look to make it 7-0 in the UFC, certify himself a title challenger sooner rather than later, maybe sometime this year, if he can beat Blaydes convincingly. The odds are dead even. This one's a pick 'em. I couldn't even quiz Keith on them because both these gentlemen are dead even, -110, -110. Keith, these two men are about 6 months apart in age, and they have the exact same number of professional fights, 22. Yet one of them feels like a grizzled old veteran, and the other one feels like an up-and-coming prospect. That's the magic of getting called up to the UFC late versus early. I feel like the book is out on Blaydes. Like we know what we have.
Sure. Yeah.
He is a super elite wrestler. Depending on what you like in a wrestler, you can make an argument that he's the greatest heavyweight wrestler in modern MMA history. Like what he's done and to whom.
Sure.
He's athletic in strange ways. Like I don't know if he's a jump out of the gym guy. I don't know how he'd do in a decathlon against other heavyweights, but I do know that the old kind of cliches about heavyweight X moves like a middleweight hold true for Curtis. Like the kinds of takedowns Curtis shoots, most heavyweights don't shoot. And he is freakishly strong, as you would expect of a 6'4", 260-pound guy who is a lifelong wrestler. And
I mean, sorry to interrupt you, but other than Brock Lesnar, Cain Velasquez.
Yeah. Brock
Randy, but Randy was so different. Like, he was so undersized, and I don't even consider him a heavyweight. Yeah, anyway, sorry.
Yeah, but that's it, and Blaydes, he's an improved striker, especially offensively. He has good power. He does try, he has long arms. He has a long reach, and he does at least try to use it well, use it to his advantage. he has defensive liabilities on the feet, and that's basically it. The people that beat Curtis Blaydes are people that can tag him, and one shot is hard enough to turn the fight. If you're an Alexander Volkov and you're a very good striker, but you don't necessarily have one strike kill shot power, Blaydes going to give you a long, long night. If you're Francis Ngannou, if you're Derek Lewis, if you're Sergey Pavlovich, you can thrive against Curtis Blaydes. I don't know if Almeida can do that. Almeida is a freakish athlete. He is a jump out of the gym type. If they did some sort of decathlon, made all these guys do the 100-meter sprint, the javelin throw, the discus throw, like that kind of thing, or they put these guys through the NFL combine, Jailton Almeida, not even knowing the first thing about American football, is going to do great. You put that man through the 20-yard shuttle drill, you make him, run between the cones. He's going to do great. You look at it now, it's hard to believe he was ever a light heavyweight. It's just like they just added a drop of water to him and he turned into a 245-pound man. He is an effective wrestler and a devastating grappler once things are on the ground. He hits incredibly hard and he throws a good diversity of strikes, but he's not very polished on the feet at all. Like, his striking is effective, and it's especially effective because a lot of his opponents are terrified of being taken down, and most of them are nowhere near as fast or as powerful as he is. But unless Blaydes has faded, I favor him in this one. For Almeida to win this one, something would have to happen that I've not really seen happen to Blaydes before. Like, I think Blaydes will be able to take Almeida down. And while Almeida is a horrifying top position grappler, and things are generally like, if Almeida takes you down, things are usually over. Like, he's going to beat 7 colors of shit out of you. And then until either the ref pulls him off or you turn your back and he chokes you. If Blaydes takes him down, I don't know what that looks like. I don't know what Jailton Almeida looks like on his back with a bigger guy on him. I also don't know how Almeida will react if he tries to take Blaydes down. He can't. Like, if Blaydes just pancakes his first attempt, spins to the back and Almeida has to scramble away. Almeida could tag him with a single kill shot on the feet. Again, like Pavlovich, like Lewis, like Ngannou twice. But that would take a level of accuracy that we've not necessarily seen from him. I know he has the power. If you take him to the Dave and Buster's and you have him punch the thing that shows how many PSI are in your punch, I'm sure he would not embarrass himself alongside Pavlovich, Lewis, and Ngannou. He might not beat them, but he wouldn't embarrass himself. But the thing about especially Ngannou's second knockout of Blaydes and Lewis's knockout of Blaydes is how perfectly timed and accurate they were. Ngannou just hitting Blaydes with that single shot perfectly behind the ear as he almost ran by, Ngannou sidesteps to take down tap, just plunks him behind the ear. And then Lewis obviously spends most of the first round on the ground. Then the second round sees the double coming. Blaydes shoots to the wrong side and Lewis hits him with the greatest submarine uppercut, in MMA history. That's the kind of thing I haven't seen from Jailton Almeida yet. So if he beats Blaydes, I'm completely on the bandwagon. Jailton Almeida is a future champ. And he may be a future champ even if he loses. But if Jailton Almeida convincingly beats Blaydes, he's probably going to do it by showing something he hasn't shown yet, despite being on this long undefeated streak. And I'm saying now, okay, Almeida might be fighting for a title by the end of this year. I don't see it happening. I think Blaydes beats Almeida here, and I think he beats Almeida in frustrating ways. I think we see Almeida be the more tired man maybe late. We've seen Blaydes get tired before. His cardio isn't completely bulletproof, but we've also seen him thrive in fights where he did some rinse and repeat takedowns where, he was taking guys down over and over again.
Sure.
And Almeida's gas tank isn't that proven either. So he lasted 5 rounds against Lewis, but that was a slow
Yeah.
fight. That is not the fight that Curtis Blaydes is going to give him. Like, I could do that with Derek Lewis for 25 minutes. Like,
well, you have been training that jiu-jitsu, man. You know.
We know that jiu-jitsu doesn't work on Derek Lewis, so I'm training the wrong thing. Yeah, give me Blaydes to frustrate Almeida here. If Almeida hurts Blaydes on the feet, if he has the kind of power that it's over with one well-placed punch, well, I'm wrong. But if he just hurts Blaydes, I can see Blaydes still taking him down, regaining his wits, still managing to win that round. Yeah, I think Blaydes is the more complete fighter of the two right now. He's the more polished one, even though I just pointed out how close they are in age and total fight experience. They both have 22 fights, but Blaydes has been fighting the best guys in the world for 20 of them, and Almeida has for about 5. And I think it's going to show. Give me Blaydes by decision here.
I just want to point out that you can't spell black belt practitioner without the word Ben in there. So just without the B, E, and N in there. Yeah, this fight, man. I'm actually very surprised. I'm pleased that it's not on the main card, but I'm very surprised by that. I don't think anybody's gonna argue that, well, hey, we can't get behind Almeida, who, future title challenger, without main card push, because the UFC has a history of not promoting the heavyweights. I don't know many people are gonna say that. I mean, I'm sure Bob Simpson will say something silly like that, but or something like
he'll act bad that Despaigne versus Parisian wasn't on the main card.
Yeah, Joanne Wood didn't get a co-main event. Curtis Blaydes, I mean, he's a massive dude. I mean, he's huge. He used to be a very one-dimensional fighter, but his striking has really come along. I do think that some of the things that we were kind of crediting with the striking, we might have to pause. I mean, like, he starts Chris Dawkins, and we're like, oh wow, what a really good showing, but it was like, oh yeah, it was Chris Dawkins, which that one hasn't aged well. Yeah. I also think he can be really dumb at times. I mean, him trying to slug it out his last fight with Sergey Pavlovich was a really bad move. Now, sure, I think he tried one takedown attempt, we couldn't get him down. I'm trying to remember. I just watched the fight, so but still, like, yeah, you're better off pulling guard than trying to slug it out with Sergey Pavlovich. Obviously, he's got great power. I mean, you look at the guy, a big guy, long arms. His straight right is his best punch. He uses feints well to set up his shots. Defensively, he shoulder rolls, which I don't like, but I think is very dangerous. But especially with the big boys throwing hammers at you, he throws hard leg kicks. I mean, some of the meanest leg kicks. He'd be just a big thudding guy. You mentioned it, probably the best wrestler in the division. He has great entry. He cuts the corners well, blasts through your opponent's hips kind of guy. One fight that you mentioned, said he's had fights where he just takes guys over and over again. I think in the Volkov fight, I mean, Volkov's been a solid grappler on his career, and he just turned him into a takedown dummy. He did the same against Shamil Abdurrahimov. The other thing that's good for Blaydes, not good for us fans, but good for us, he doesn't care about being exciting. Like, he has no issue with taking a guy down, getting booed, slowly working inch by inch, and looking to control. Like, Almeida got booed a lot, and or on Twitter, people hated on him with the Derek Lewis fight. Blaydes, that's exactly how he if he could rematch Derek Lewis, like, he'd have no issue winning a fight like that.
That's what he was trying to do.
Yeah, what he was. Yeah, he was trying to do it, and then Derek Lewis caught him. Yeah, perfect timing, like a historically, like, perfectly timed punch. So yeah, that's a good point. Once he has tired his opponent out, that's when he really unloads in the ground. I mean, he wants to control first. He's going to work slowly, but he has some really mean ground pound. I mean, he's a big dude. I mean, we saw in his last fight again, and I don't want to say his last fight, but his last 5-round fight, that he can go hard and go deep, but he will slow down. Like, he did slow down against Volkov. This is a 15-minute fight, so that I'm not worried too much about his gas tank. But I'm more worried about his chin. The dude's been knocked out a lot. Now, again, the guys who have knocked him out are probably the hardest hitters. Like, they're on the Mount Rushmore of heavyweight hitters. I mean, Francis Ngannou, Derek Lewis, Sergey Pavlovich. I mean, these guys can freaking crank. Almeida, he I mean, also a massive dude, long arms, 79-inch reach. I mean, something about this UFC card today. They're putting the gigantic heavyweights. I mean, between Blaydes, Almeida, the newcomer, what's his name, Despaigne. I mean, Parisian's a big freaking dude. Like they're putting the gigantic guys on this one. His striking has improved. I mean, it definitely has a lot of areas that need growth, but it's much better than when he first showed up on the UFC. Due to his size, he obviously has power. He's got a good kicking game with those long legs. He likes to throw a lot of kicks. He loves teep kicks. He loves calf kicks. He's a good wrestler. He's got some fast entries. He also got some strong clinch takedowns. We saw that like on the Contender Series. He slammed Shamil Abdurrahim, picked up and slammed him. Very strong top game. I mean, you saw against Derek Lewis. He'll work inch for inch, trying to secure a position. He'll easily advance on the ground. He has some great back takes. He's got 10 subs on his record. He definitely is a top side grappler, but when we've seen him on his back, he has gotten subs from his back. But he'll play jiu-jitsu a little too much instead of getting up, and you really can't play jiu-jitsu against heavyweights. But he's hit some sweeps. He landed some mean ground and pound against Jonas Dina Rosenstrike, against Daniel Marquez. Though he, against Derek Lewis, he refused to open up the ground and pound. He really stalled at that time. I am worried about his cardio. He went 5 rounds against Derek Lewis, but I mean, it was slow paced. Controlled. He was never gassed, but he didn't really step on the gas either. So despite picking up the biggest win in his career, obviously a win over Derek Lewis, and I mean, his stock has dropped. I mean, I think everybody expected him, if he got Lewis down, to get a quick sub, which wasn't the case, but he still dominated. He won every round, 50-45 to him. I think he might even got maybe 50-44s or in there or something. But even though that said, he was kind of viewed as the next big thing. And even though when his rise, I want to be clear, I'm not saying like he's not rising up the UFC anymore. So I just meant like it slowed down a little bit, he was like, he's kind of doing the cruise control now instead of like he was accelerating before. So
if he'd blown Lewis away, he might have been fighting for a title in his next fight.
Exactly.
Like at least an interim one with Jones doing his thing.
Yeah, and even if they had to make this fight, if he blew through Derek Lewis, this is on the main card. This is third from the top. This might be the co-main event. If it. That said, even when there was more buzz on this guy, I always thought Blaydes was the worst stylistic matchup for him in the division. I mean, Blaydes is just as big as him. He's a better wrestler. He's a better striker, in my opinion. I think Blaydes stops takedown attempts from Almeida, and I think he opens up on the feet. I think Blaydes lands some big shots on his own. He could go for takedowns and control on top, but I don't know if, and we might get that from Blaydes, but I think he might just sprawl and brawl, and I think he might land some big shots. And I'm gonna say Blaydes gets it done. I'm gonna say he does it early. I'm gonna say Blaydes gonna land a big shot. I'm gonna say Blaydes wins by first round knockout.
Oh, all right. That is 2 for Curtis Blaydes to win, and at least 1 to make it uncharacteristically interesting in the top prelim at UFC 299. The 5-fight main card of UFC 299 opens up with a bantamweight matchup between former champ Petr Yan and rising contender Song Yadong. Yan, the 31-year-old Siberian, is 16-5 overall. He is 8-4 since joining the UFC as the former ACB/ACA bantamweight champ. He's on a 3-fight losing streak. In his defense, those came against Aljamain Sterling in their title rematch, Sean O'Malley, your current champ, in a fight that was so close that some people thought Yan won it, and against Merab Dvalishvili, who many believe might be the champ by the end of this year. So, not pretty, but as 3-fight win streaks go, about as forgivable as they get. Nonetheless, I'm sure he is very, very motivated to turn that around. He will attempt to do it here against Song. The 26-year-old from China, the longtime resident of Sacramento, is 21-7-1 with 1 no contest overall. He's 10-2-1 in the UFC. He is on a 2-fight winning streak since his loss to Corey Sandhagen a year and a half ago. He has a 5th round knockout of Ricky Simon last April, followed up by a 5-round decision over Chris Gutierrez in the headliner of UFC Fight Night 233 back in December. He'll look to make it 3 in a row and again take one step towards that elusive bantamweight title shot. Your favorite is minus 140. Your underdog is plus 110. Who are they, Keith?
I'll say Jan is still a favorite.
You are correct. Petr Yan minus 140. Song Yadong plus 110. Man, I'm gonna flip this one to you first, but tell me if this take is crazy. I feel somewhere in the back of my mind I've written off Petr Yan as like over, and the guy's 31 years old.
Yeah.
And if you argue that he's the 4th best bantamweight on the planet, I may not agree, but I wouldn't laugh at you.
No,
I mean, like about a third of observers thought he beat your current champ. He had a razor close fight against the previous champ, and he had, I mean, like he definitely lost to Moroz, but Moroz might be your next champ.
Sure.
He's still right there. He's just on a 3-fight losing streak. And again, he's 31, just turned 31 last month. Even at 135, that's not old. Am I crazy? No. Like, are people prematurely writing this guy off?
Yeah, no. Even if you you want to throw like you want to go outside the UFC and throw like Apache mix over him, okay. So he drops down to 5th best. Yeah. I mean, he beat Sandhagen recently, so can you really drop him any further than that? Is there anybody else you can make an argument over him right now? Obviously, it might change on Saturday, but yeah. I mean, you know, if he went from losing to Sterling and take a big step back, and for even you know, let me see, like even like a Pedro Munhoz, he might still be really buzzed. He might be arguing he's the best guy in the world, after losing a really close fight to Sterling.
Yeah. Or if O'Malley had like just blasted him out of his sneakers, in 2 minutes or something.
Yeah. The issue is it's I think Moroz does that to people. Moroz beats you so bad that he kind of takes your identity too.
I can completely co-sign on that.
Yeah, because if that Moroz fight didn't happen, I think we'd have a lot more buzz on him. Like, oh wow, he lost 2 fights, but both were split decision. He could beat either one of those guys. But you see the Moroz fight, it's like, oh no, he's nowhere near the top guy. Like this is like what Moroz does. Now, Jan, he's a really good striker, very good boxer. He fights out of both stances. My one issue I've had, I mean, I have a couple issues, but my big issue with him is he can be trigger shy. He can give way around. So he's kind of very similar to Anderson Silva, where he's, if he's not getting tagged up really good, he's not really worried about how the fight is going. He's kind of setting traps, and it's like, yeah, that's playing a really dangerous game. Now, he's a fantastic striker, but he's lost rounds or given away close rounds to guys like Jose Aldo, and I seem to say lost rounds, but like made rounds closer than they should be. I mean, he did it against Aldo, he did it against Sandhagen, he did it against Jimmy Rivera, where he had to like come back, and that was a long time ago. He had to like up his volume at the end to steal rounds, and he needs to up his volume right from the very beginning. Now, when he lets his hands, he's got really fast hands, and he's a guy that he picks up his volume and marches his opponents down when he starts feeling comfortable. But it's usually like halfway through the second round before he really starts doing that. He's got fast hands. I love, and I've said this before, but I love that he throws the spots when he has guys trapped, where they're going to go. He has some really good power. He loves like a slip uppercut, which you don't see, especially when he's like in the pocket. He's hard to hit to the head because he has a very turtling defense, really pillaring, over-exaggerating what he's doing, hiding very boxing heavy background. But because of that, he's open to kicks to the body. I mean, something that Sterling had success with. His legs are also really in opening because same thing. He's blocking here instead of the rest of his body. He's taken some damage. I mean, O'Malley's. I mean, say what score that fight however you want. O'Malley hurt him several times in that fight. So again, and no, that's a loss that has aged really well. That O'Malley's the champion. He's a decent offensive wrestler, but it's more weird. He can shoot for entries. But he's more of a guy like catch a kick and sweep the leg and then like not even cover the guy up. When he'll get some body lock takedowns if you ever pursue, but it's like it's more of a like I'm going to try to stop what you're trying to do offensively, then more I want to take you down and score because of like stuff like this. Like you throw a kick, all right, I'll catch you and sweep you. But he's not really necessarily wanting it on top. It's more just like he wants you to stop throwing that kick. He's good at winning scrambles, but takedown defense I think is a little bit of an issue. I mean, Magomed going way back took him down and won the one fight that was close. Well, they actually had two close fights, but that was how he won the fight. Sterling, obviously, in his, especially his rematch, not necessarily the first, but the rematch against Jan was taking him down. Moroz was taking him down like crazy, but to his credit, like Moroz shot like I think Rob got like 50 takedowns, but he shot like 100 takedowns. Like he stopped just as many takedowns as Rob throughout there. But nobody else can do that. No one's going to fight him that way. But to his credit, like, yeah, Marab took him down a bunch of time. He also worked back to his feet. Song Yadong, big step up in competition. He deserves it. I mean, this guy, he just won a fight night main event. He's a great striker. He has really good output, technically sound, very crisp, tight boxing, fast hands. He's accurate. What I like is not a lot of tells. It's short stuff. He's got big power. I mean, he hurts guys. Very crisp jab. Follows that up with big combinations. Good kicking game. I like his high kick. He's got a mean calf kick. He's also an underrated wrestler. Like you can sneak in a takedown here and there. Not a great defensive wrestler, though he did show some improvements against Ricky Simon in that aspect. Good overall grab. He's got 3 subs on his record. If taken down, he does good to get back up. And he's got cardio. I mean, he showed, he's got cardio. And I think it was last 2 fights were both 5-round fights. So
yes,
man, as far as prediction, I'm glad that the line is close. Like I think it should be. I one, because I like Song Yadong. I think he deserves this step up in competition and kind of he wins this fight. He's really in the mix. But Jan too, like don't fade him too much. It has a lot to do who he's fought. Jan has taken a lot of damage over the years, and that's a little concerning to me. And it's kind of why I'm fading him. Like I think he's gonna eat a lot of kicks from Song Yadong, and I also think there might be moments where he's not throwing enough, and he's losing close rounds because of that. Because he doesn't have the best. His striking intelligence is good. It's like his technical intelligence of what he does. It's more of that like cageship, that knowing the big picture of how to win. I still think he still has too much of a boxing mentality in that. So I'm gonna go the upset. I'm gonna say Song Yadong wins. I'm gonna say wins by decision.
Man, I like the pick there. I especially like it as a slight underdog pick. I'm going against it, even though I know you're probably right. Because the thing is, I feel as though these guys are on. I mean, you will always use the metaphor of the 2 escalators going the opposite way. I know that they're on escalators going the opposite way. And I know that they're going to pass each other at some point. If these guys fought a year from now, 2 years, like the further down the line we go, the more I'm fading Jan, the more I'm like pumping up Song.
Song seems like a guy that would just take the stairs anyways.
We just talked about Maycee Barber. It's hard for me to believe that Song Yadong is still just 26 years old and just barely turned 26 in like December. Just he's been in the UFC so long.
Yeah.
That even though I know in my head, he was like 20 when he got there. I'm like,
I didn't even mention his age
now.
That's how surprising it is. I didn't even mention his age. It's something I go to a lot.
Yeah,
he seems like he should be like 32.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I just think we're talking about like stairs and everything. Like the escalators. Song Yadong is like taking the stairs, and like Moroz is like climbing up the stairwell, like bars.
Yeah.
Like, I'm pretty sure like Moroz does not do step by step. He's the guy who like always has to hop every 3 steps.
I'm sure. Or he's like he's going up the stairwell like parkouring, like jumping from the wall to the rail, and like Song is a little bit bigger. While both these guys have good underrated power, Song probably has a little more. And Jan is a little older. He's not old, but he's been in a lot of battles, and he's going to be in another one here. Every Song Yadong fight ends up with at least one of the 2 fighters just looking like he's been run over by a truck, sometimes both of them. Every fight is just one closer to the fight where Jan's body can't take it anymore. But I really do think he has the boxing and defensive wrestling to frustrate Song for enough of this fight to win it. And while I totally agree with you that he will sometimes leave rounds closer than they need to be. I mean, that happened in the second Sterling fight as well. He's got to be motivated here. He thinks he beat O'Malley. He's gonna see O'Malley fight. He knows that he has a narrowing window to like fight back to a title shot against O'Malley, and if he loses here, it puts him like way back down the ladder. I hate to base a pick on an intangible like that, but because I think the rest of this matchup is so close, that's almost like the last little tiebreaker there. Give me Jan in a close decision here. And again, this is a fight that I think would go very differently if it were happening 2 years from now, and will go probably differently if, you know, I mean, if Song wins, there's probably not much chance these guys ever rematch. If Jan wins, there's a good chance they rematch at some point down the road.
Sure.
Because it'll mean Jan stays above Song in the rankings. But give me Jan for now by decision in a nail biter. And I still think there's a good chance you're right on this one. Next up on the UFC 299 main card is a welterweight matchup between Gilbert Burns and Jack Della Maddalena. Burns, the 37-year-old Brazilian, is 22-6 overall. He is 15-6 in the UFC. He is 8-3 since moving up to welterweight. He started his UFC run as a very dehydrated and over-muscled lightweight, finally gave in, moved up to 170, and did well enough to fight all the way to a title shot. And, came fairly close to being your champ, as he had Kamaru Usman hurt badly in the first round of their fight 3 years ago before succumbing to, at the time, maybe the top pound-for-pound fighter in the sport. He did lose his last time out. He fought the man nobody wants to fight, Belal Muhammad, last May at UFC 288, dropping a unanimous decision. Prior to that, he had back-to-back wins over Neil Magny and Jorge Masvidal. So he's looking to get back in the win column. He's looking to do it against one of the more quietly rising contenders in the division in Della Maddalena. 27-year-old Australian is 16-2 overall. He is 6-0 since joining the UFC out of the 5th season of Dana White's Contender Series, and he is on a 16-fight win streak since he lost his first 2 professional fights and has been perfect ever since. He fought most recently last September at UFC, Noche UFC, the Grasso versus Shevchenko card, taking a split decision over Kevin Holland. Odds on this one: your favorite is -140, your underdog is +110. Keith, who are they?
Yeah, this one's tough. This one, man, I'm gonna say Maddalena is the favorite.
Jack Della Maddalena is your favorite, -140. Gilbert Burns +110. You clearly feel, as I do, that this is a damn close fight. Tell me how you think it plays out and who you think wins.
Yeah, this is a really good matchup. This is good matchmaking. I recently dogged the UFC. This is like, the veteran being the really, really big test for the prospects who's on the rise. It's his chance to kind of crack into the top 5. If you had Maddalena's, Burns, last hurrah to stay relevant in the division. I'm really intrigued about this fight. I love Gilbert Burns. He's like one of my favorite fighters. He's so well-rounded, and he's just a tough out for anybody. He's a good striker. He's got some fast hands, keeps everything tight. When he opens up his power shots, he's got hard, short, tight hooks. He attacks with combination. He has serious power. When he gets inside, he lands some bombs. He starched Damian Maia. He hurt Kamaru Usman, you mentioned. He had Chimaev hurt, his hardest fight to date. He has struggled with some, the movement of the longer guys, the Usman's jab, Chimaev's jab. Some of that has to do with, his height and reach disadvantage. He's got a good chin. He better have one because he's taken so much damage over the years. He loves to kind of get inside the clinch, uses like his shortness as a little bit of a leverage in the clinch. Get a good head position when your head is underneath someone's chin. got some mean, dirty boxing. On the ground, I mean, he's an elite level grappler. I mean, he's a 3-time world BJJ champion. He's got some good takedowns. I mean, he made Stephen Thompson into a takedown dummy.
Let me throw out one little thing about his grappling. So, yeah, he's the 3-time Mundials champ. He's an Abu Dhabi bronze medalist. He won bronze at Abu Dhabi in 2015. That's after he was in the UFC. He'd been in the UFC for a year. So he won bronze at Abu Dhabi, probably not having trained pure grappling like at all. And while in the midst of cutting to 155 pounds every 4 months. Like, that's wild.
Yeah, and you have these professional jiu-jitsu guys. That's all they do is jiu-jitsu. You know, you Gordon Ryans, you guys like this. You know, he's got good entries. I mean, he picked up and slammed Tyron Woodley. He's got some good body lock takedowns. It's actually something he's really good at inside trips. Got good hip control. He can throw guys. I mean, I always go back to him. It's been a while now, but he threw Gunnar Nelson in that fight with a judo throw. Smother and top control. Great sub game. He's got 9 subs on his record. Recently subbed Neil Magny. Maddalena, he's a well-rounded fighter. He can fight out of both stances. Moves really well. Good footwork. Cuts angles offensively so well. He's a builder as he gets stronger as the fight goes on. When he gets more comfortable. Very accurate striker. Throws straight shots down the pipe. Short, tight shots. Not much tells. I like that he works the body well. He's got huge power. I mean, he's got 11 TKOs in his career. He showed his power when he blasted Randy Brown to hurt him. He is open to leg kicks because he's such a heavy boxing style, very, very heavy on his front foot. He likes to kind of battle inside in the short distance striking pot, you know, the range. He's got a judo background, so he will kind of get inside and look for some body takedowns, but he also shoot from distance. He's pretty good at winning scrambles, good funk wrestling. If you take him down, he loves like Granby rolling out of position, and he's hard to hold down, and he's got good submission defense. So I love that the line is really close. I mean, because I flip-flopped on this one. It's been a little bit of a theme for me. I mean, I'm looking at let's see, Munhoz, Cerminara, Blaydes. Who else? Yeah, I mean, those are just a couple of ones.
Yeah, and I went with Jan, so it's a theme for both of us. Like,
yeah,
with old bogeys.
Yeah, taking some of these old guys to kind of turn back the clock. So I mean, I took Gamrot over RDA, and I did take Song. So I want to play all I've done is taking some old veterans, but I'm gonna do it here. I'm gonna take Burns. He's so crafty now, despite being older and slower. I just think he finds a way to take this fight into his world, and he I see him just wearing down Della Maddalena with a lot of clinching, some takedown attempts. I think he gets the fight to the ground. I think he shows that he's still an amazing grappler. I think he does enough en route to win a really close back and forth fight. I'll say he wins a split decision. Give me Gilbert Burns by split decision.
Yeah, I could not agree with you more that this is fantastic matchmaking. And obviously the platonic ideal of matchmaking is where any outcome is a win for the promotion. Like, that's what the goal should be. And that's what, Joe Silva achieved more often than any other matchmaker, which is a big part of what made the UFC, what it became. And here's another, because, okay, if Della Maddalena beats Burns, that's a fantastic step forward. But if Burns manages to beat Della Maddalena, like, it reaffirms him as a contender. Like, it's not just a wasted prospect for nothing. And I could not agree more. Of course.
Another thing when you do matchmaking, sometimes it is the gamble. Like, you take that gamble, and if the prospect passes the test, it's like, wow, we took a gamble putting in this, but he passed it, and it just looks so much better. Like, it's better for the UFC if Jack Della Maddalena wins.
Yes.
And then he had the long route. He came through welterweight. He had to go through like a guy like Gilbert Burns. But that's a gamble you take sometimes.
Yeah. No, like, totally agree. But a calculated gamble. Also agree with you. The Burns is awesome. Like, Burns, since his loss to Usman, where again, he made it to the summit. He came tantalizingly close to being UFC welterweight champ. He fell short. Since then, he's kind of settled in as he's always speaks up quickly to step up on short notice if it's any kind of sensible matchup, and he's fighting the guys that nobody wants to fight. Nobody wanted to fight Khamzat Chimaev in April of 2022. Nobody wants to fight Bilal Muhammad ever. And I can't imagine most people are clamoring to fight Jack Della Maddalena. Burns is your man. He is awesome. Della Maddalena, you and I have talked a few times about why he doesn't get the same shine as Khamzat Chimaev, as Shavkat Rakhmonov. And there were always the two reasons. One, he doesn't have the 0. Even though his 2 losses are completely irrelevant to the fighter he is now, if he were 16-0, we'd be talking about him differently. And then the other part is that by the eyeball test, he doesn't cut the same figure as Chimaev or Rakhmonov. And now there's a third thing. Last summer, he took on Basel Hafez on short notice, and Hafez gave him a hell of a fight. And that's, that was enough for a certain segment of fans and analysts alike to be like, okay, well, a real future champ destroys short notice Basel Hafez. Like, I mean, sure, some of them might, but at some point, if you've won 16 fights in a row, that means you've won on nights that you didn't have your best game. Like maybe you had the flu, maybe you had a bad weight cut, maybe there was some nagging injury. Just to win, fight in and fight. I'm like, dude, think back to Fedor. Fedor won 1 million fights in a row. Some of them, he looked not great against mediocre opponents. Like this, he got put on roller skates by Kazuyuki Fujita.
Random and powerbombed him.
Yeah, random and powerbombed him.
I thought he lost. This is the beginning.
Brett Rogers split his face wide open. That thing could have been stopped.
Oh, that's a good one.
Lost at the end of the first. Yeah,
that's a good one. I forgot about that one. Arlovsky was doing extremely well before he got caught.
Yeah, Arlovsky was definitely winning for a 60 seconds. And he did one stupid thing.
Yeah, I mean, it was the beginning of his run, but I thought Hikaru Arona beat him.
Yeah, I mean, I know there's weirdness of rings rules, but watching that as an MMA fan in the 2010s or 2020s, I'm like, I think Arona won this fight. Yeah. Like, just the point is, there is something about winning 16 fights in a row that you don't have to apologize for anything, man. Like, taking on Basel Hafez on like 3 days' notice, all the risk, all the pressure was on you. Hafez, like, he walks in, he's the savior, and he's guaranteed at least 2 more fights just for fighting you. I was hesitant to detract from Della Maddalena for that. And I like that you pointed out his power. It's underrated power. You see he has a ton of knockouts, and you just assume, okay, he's a gritty guy that just breaks people down with attrition and volume, and he does that, but there's also a ton of power. Like, he's hurting people all the way there. I think people are going to underrate him, like, all the way right up until he fights for a title, and they're going to wonder, how did we get here? And he is just 27 years old. He's another one that, like, man,
he's young.
Obviously, the greatest welterweight in the world is still whoever did that to his nose. But yeah,
Jesus. There's always the chance that this is the fight where it finally starts to fall off for Burns, because not only is Burns still fighting as well as he ever has at 37, but he's fighting as well as he ever has in ways that guys usually don't. Guys as athletic as Burns and who get in wars like Burns has tend to fall off quicker than this. It's like, that's what's really remarkable to me about his run since the Usman fight. Like, if you'd asked me that night, and hell, I mean, that's recent enough that we did a recap for it. But if anybody had asked me that night, I would have said, okay, it's downhill from here. Burns gets 1 or 2 more good wins, but from here on out, he's under 500 and he's retired from the sport by March of 2024. Like, I figured the wheels were going to start to fall off quickly there. They haven't. He's at least as good as the guy that took Usman to the limit. And Chimaev too.
And Chimaev, yeah, he still gave Chimaev a tougher fight than anybody else has. Like, yeah, full stop. Like I thought he definitely lost the fight, but he won a round, and Chimaev was not laughing at the end of it.
No.
If this is the fight, because it has been like 10 months since he fought, he's had a birthday since then. If this is the fight where all of a sudden Gilbert Burns is old, it's going to be ugly. He won't be able to like if Della Maddalena hurts him bad in the first round, even if he survives to the end of the first round, okay, we know Burns is on his way down and this is a terrible matchup for him. But if he's the same guy that fought Masvidal Muhammad Magny last year, I'm with you. Like, I think the old man's got one more has got one more big win in him, and Della Maddalena's 16 fight win streak comes to an end here. I think Burns can take Della Maddalena down. I think Della Maddalena, who is a good wrestler when he wants to be, if he knows what's good for him, isn't going to want to take Burns down. So I see Burns as having more outlets to victory as well, which is kind of a theme for this card. Two dangerous fighters, and I lean towards the one that has more routes to victory because Della Maddalena has good underrated power. Burns has crushing power. If one guy knocks the other out with one punch, it's Burns. Yeah. Give me Burns to win a decision here. And I'm going to say it's kind of a comprehensive performance. Like, both guys get in their licks on the feet, but Burns definitely hurts Della Maddalena a couple times. He also scores, takedowns and uses his top game to win at least one of the 3 rounds just purely with his groundwork. But Burns by decision in the mild upset as well. Third from the top at UFC 299 is a welterweight matchup featuring fan favorite Kevin Holland, at this point, longtime fringe contender in multiple divisions, and the long-awaited, much-anticipated debut of Michael Venom Page. Holland, the 31-year-old Texan, is 25-10 with 1 no contest overall. He is 12-6 with 1 no contest in the UFC. Notably, he's 4-1 at welterweight. He has tried his luck at welterweight as well as middleweight. He's had success in both divisions, but at welterweight, he's 4-1, and he just had his first loss there. Dropped a split decision to Della Maddalena last September at the Noche UFC card. He's going to look to get back into the win column and spoil the party for the man they call MVP. 36-year-old Brit is 21-2 overall. While this will be his UFC debut, he amassed a record of 17-2 in Bellator. Went from a curiosity and highlight reel contributor to one of their bigger homegrown stars, just in terms of win total and a bunch of other statistics. He fought most recently last March, finishing Goichi Yamauchi in like 30 seconds with a leg kick. We knew as recently as we knew before the Bellator to PFL sale, like we knew last summer that Page was coming. This is the first time he'll step into the cage. Your favorite is -125. Your underdog +105. Who are they, Keith?
Wow. I'll say MVP is a favorite.
You've been pretty good on your line guesses tonight, but you do fall short here as Holland is -125, Page +105. I'm excited for Michael Page to be in the UFC. He is one of the first people I ever interviewed when I worked for Sherdog. Just he was fighting with Bellator. Used to send us a list of availability. I said, I want to talk to Michael Venom Page.
Of course.
I came away from that interview with 2 impressions. One, that Michael Page is awesome. There's no, because I've also interviewed like Dylan Dennis, and I've talked to fighters who have a persona and they're on. Page isn't on at all. No. He was he was humble when it was appropriate to be humble. But he also didn't shy away from being straight about the things that he's very good at. And just very, very giving as an interview subject. Like, he gave thoughtful answers to questions. Just fantastic interview. I ended up, the interview just not saying to him, but just thinking, well, I wish this guy well. I hope he does well. I would like somebody who has this good a mindset towards his career to be rewarded for it with success. But I also came away thinking, all right, he's going to be out of the sport in a couple of years. Like, because at the time he was like 12-0 or something, 13-0, and the Bellator was matching him very, very carefully. And I said 10 times what anybody said about Conor McGregor. The first time they put Michael Page against a wrestler, he's toast.
Yeah.
You know, and even a more disciplined striker isn't going to let him do his like anime crap at him, but it'll be fun for as long as it lasts. I was dead wrong on that. While nobody was looking, Michael Page became a good mixed martial artist. He's 17-2 in Bellator. And yeah, while some of those wins are like, he beat some good fighters. And his losses, he lost to Douglas Lima, who at the time was a top 10 welterweight. And
he avenged it too.
He avenged it. And then he lost to Logan Storley, who is, I mean, he is the mythical, hypothetical, real wrestler. You know. And
a lot of people thought Michael Page should have won that fight.
Razor close split decision over a guy that theoretically should have been a terrible style matchup for him.
I mean, he didn't do a lot of damage. So the whole damage versus control argument, to me, it's like, did he really do damage? But yeah. Storley didn't do a lot.
Yeah, agreed. Like, but I mean, Storley, every minute they were on the ground is a minute that Page wasn't like, you know, axe kicking him in the top of the head. Yeah.
So I'll jump in real quick before you get into the styles. I interviewed Michael Page too when he fought Paul Daly, because Bellator had the brilliant idea of having the two British guys fight in Mohegan Sun, Connecticut for some reason. Still like, okay. And I was there like, you know, all week, and it was in person, and I interviewed him, and then I saw him. Mohegan Sun it's a casino, but it's not a very big casino. Like if you're hanging out, you'll see him all weekend long. I keep running into him and stuff. And everything you said, I say the same thing. Like, he was a cool ass dude. And after the fight, I saw him like late. Like I think I went out with Nolan King, and I ran into him later on. He's already fought a fight, and I actually started talking to him about some technique and stuff. And he was just a cool ass dude. Mm-hmm. I like Michael Venom Page too.
Yeah, like if all you knew about him was his walkouts, his fights, and his celebrations, you would assume he was a dick. Or at best, you would assume he's an Israel Adesanya type, where there's just that edge of dickiness like right around the corner.
Sure.
You know, like he's pleasant as long, and it's not the case at all. And the style that I never figured would work has kind of continued to work. We talk about fighters who present as karate fighters. They got the bladed stance. You know, they will like to do, you know, flick out kicks with the front foot. He is that to an exaggerated degree. If you've ever seen Michael Page fight, and I say close your eyes and picture Michael Page fighting, you're picturing him just literally dead side on, bouncing back and forth, hands literally at his waist, and just trusting his reflexes, which again, to this point, not many people have proven him wrong.
Hey man, I got a question for you.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I know I keep interrupting you, but so there is obviously a lot of people who don't watch Bellator, who only watch UFC.
Sure.
So there's a lot of people. This is the first time they see Michael Venom Page, other than maybe highlights stuff, but this might be the first time they see Michael Venom Page. Do you think any of our listeners are different? You know, we got, you know, if you listen to this, you'll listen to a 2+ hour show, maybe 3-hour show. You're hardcore. But do you think any of our listeners have never seen him fight?
No, my guess would be that any of our listeners that are regular enough that I recognize their handles in the chat.
Oh yeah, they have guys.
They are excited for Michael Venom Page to be in the UFC. Yeah. And here's the thing. I would never have picked Page to fight his way to a Bellator title shot. I would never pick him to become a top 15 fighter in one of the toughest divisions in the UFC, but I've underestimated him before. And if he beats Kevin Holland, he's already close. If he beats Kevin Holland convincingly, I'm not necessarily going to be calling for him to be in our top 15, but he's going to be right there.
He's already in line in front of Bilal Muhammad.
Like, you'll be able to, you know, lay out the specifics of his striking better than me, but a lot of it is stuff you see out of other karate fighters. Just it works better for him than for most of them, and a lot of it is his physical dimensions. He's incredibly tall and lanky for Walter. Like, I mean, he's instantly going to step in alongside Randy Brown as one of the two biggest guys in the division, just in terms of height, wingspan, you know, type.
Yeah.
he is fast, but it's more his timing than his speed. It's the same thing. It's the same thing as Israel Adesanya and Sean O'Malley, where and it's why he's remained effective at age 36. If it was all about speed,
McGregor too.
Yeah, and McGregor. Primer, like all these guys we're talking about were playing chess a step ahead of their opponent, steering their opponent into the next thing that he really wanted to do to him, moving him towards a spot and hitting that spot. That's Page, and he's capable of buckling down to a pretty straightforward kickboxing contest. I mean, just to name Daly, when he fought Daly, like
Daly was trying to wrestle him.
Yeah.
That's not the guy who complained about wrestling and suddenly looked like Jordan Burroughs out there.
Yeah, like the Daly that like booed his own fight as John Fitch was like cleaning the canvas with him. Didn't, and you know why? He did not want to get embarrassed the way that Michael Page embarrasses people on the feet. The thing is, there are a lot, even in that same general range. Like, I don't know where the UFC has Holland ranked, and without looking, I don't know where Sherdog has him ranked. But let's say Holland is somewhere in that.
He's not in the top 15.
No, but he's probably in the 16 to 20 range.
Yeah, he beats Holland. He might drop in the top 15.
But yeah, well, I'm saying no, Holland. Like it's say Holland is
I'm sorry. I thought you were talking about Page. I'm sorry.
Say Holland. Let's say Holland is like somewhere between 15 and 18 right now. There are other guys in that general range that I would have a hard time picking Page over. But Holland has this mixture of I think he might fuck around and find out. Because the thing about Holland is he's even taller and rangier than Page. And when he wants to, he's pretty good at being an outfighter and taking advantage of that. And he's the perfect example of the principle that there are lots of fighters who become decent offensive wrestlers while remaining terrible defensive wrestlers. Like Holland is not a good defensive wrestler, but he's a surprisingly good offensive wrestler. He's a guy, to hark back to a theme that I've mentioned a couple times on the show. He's a guy that should have more routes to victory against Page. He should have in his back pocket, I can take this dude down. But I'm not sure he will. Holland is the kind of guy that when he's in the zone is like sitting with Jacare over him in his guard, like laughing and talking at him right before he knocks him out.
Yeah.
Like if that had ended differently, if that had ended with him getting arm triangled by Jacare 30 seconds later, that would have been his hello Japan moment. Like we would be laughing at Kevin Holland right now instead of him being kind of the new Donald Cerrone. Like I think Holland is going to give us a show, and I think we're going to get one, just not the way Holland expected. I think Holland's going to give us a striking match with Page, and Holland, for a tall guy, is a surprisingly effective in-fighter, but Page is really good at keeping people on the outside.
Yeah.
Like again, even the stand-up match should lean Holland. Because Holland is nasty in the clinch. He uses his height really well there. Some of his underrated takedown game works off of, but even if not, his elbows and knees in the clinch are so nasty. Yeah. And he's pretty good at avoiding damage in the clinch unless he's fighting a guy that's just 30 pounds heavier than him and can ragdoll him. I think like Holland, this is what my long way around to say. Holland, among the guys that are kind of within the same reasonable area in the rankings, is the one most likely to give Michael Page the perfect Michael Page fight. Like, give me Michael Page to announce himself on the UFC stage with an emphatic highlight reel moment. And yeah, it's going to be something just like a totally untelegraphed, like sidekick with the front leg that just jacks Holland's jaw, followed by, a couple of punches that just come up from his waist, like a lot of Page's strikes do, and then all of a sudden he's rolling a pokeball at him and pulling like a little dagger out and holding it between his teeth and acting like some anime that I've never even heard of. Michael Page has a star-making moment in one of the UFC's biggest pay-per-views of the year as the slight underdog gets a knockout. I'm going to say he does it in the first round.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure RC Kim will know who the anime is. Dude, yeah, you got me pumped for a freaking Michael Page debut. Like, nice job, man. So I mean, MVP. So the dude's 36, so it's likely he's entering the UFC past his prime. I mean, it's welterweight. But I mean, his record's real. I mean, obviously really good. I mean, losing to Mike Perry and bare knuckle boxing is not a good look. But I didn't watch it. I have no idea. And I would tell you, I just don't watch bare knuckle boxing. I just don't. Whatever. Being how old he is and how exciting he is, and the flashiness and his personality, welterweight's the slow rise up the division. He'll be the guy who gets fast tracked. A lot of it has to do with his age or what he's done. You know, if he beats Kevin Holland and then say like gets put against Stephen Thompson, beats him, wins both by knockout, he's probably fighting for the title.
I can see that.
And I don't hate if they do that. Like think about the fast track that Michael Chandler had. It's going to be very similar to that.
And in this same division, if Khamzat Chimaev had stayed healthy and stayed in one weight class, like the UFC would have fast tracked him at 170 with the quickness.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it was him. Yeah.
Obviously, you mentioned he's a long and lengthy striker. He's a crazy athlete. I mean, his flying knee to Cyborg Santos is still one of the meanest things I've ever seen in MMA. I mean, one of the scariest things when you see the X-rays of
dude,
skull.
No. Cyborg Santos, and we're just keep in mind we're talking about Evangelista Santos, Chris Cyborg's ex-husband.
Yeah.
He had a gym down here in Houston, like Shoot a Box, like Team Cyborg down here. So I would see him at local events. Dude, he still got the dent in his head. It never like whatever they did, they left the dent. Like whatever that little suction cup is, they used to fix like door panel dents in cars. They did not use that on him. But and it's hard not to stare at it when you see him.
Yeah, it looks like a freaking a freaking ultimate got hit with a basketball.
He wasn't exactly Alan Joban or Elias Theodore even before. I mean, he might have been a 3 in bad lighting before, but he was rough to look at by the end.
Yeah, now he's more like, instead of Alan Joban, he's more like Alan Belcher.
Alan Belcher, who fought at BKFC last night.
Yeah, he got busted up. I heard. Yeah, he looks like a freaking car fender who's got hit with like a basketball. I mean, the guy, Michael Venom Page, I mean, he's incredible striker. I mean, he's the guy, dude's a sniper. He just sits back and then suddenly springs at his opponent with great precision. You mentioned he hangs his hands low, which obviously is an issue defensively. He leaves his chin wide open, but it's so hard to see him coming offensively. His step back right counter is a beautiful punch. He's got serious. I mean, he can do it from both sides, so I shouldn't say right, but his step back counter shots beautiful. He has serious power. He'll throw some spinning attacks out. The great kicking game. Loves switch kicks, mean kicks to the body. I mean, like you mentioned, his last fight against Kota Yamauchi, it was a calf kick that just folded Yamauchi. He sets up his punches behind his kicks, which is something that's so backwards than most people do. Most people they throw the hands and set up the kicks. Like he'll throw kicks, and then follow up with a punch. Not much of an offensive wrestler. He's a weak defensive wrestler, but to his credit, he showed some improved takedown defense against Logan Storley. He made him really work for those positions, but he struggles to get off the bottom. Kevin Holland, he's also a long lengthy guy, also a great athlete. I mean, I've said this before, and it's something I continue to say about him. He covers distance so quickly because his length. He just it takes one big step and he's halfway across the cage. He's a sharp striker himself. He's got quick hands. Likes to work behind like the up jab. He's got really, really solid power. Defensively, I have some issues. He rolls with punches, which I've never liked. He avoids strikes that way. He also pulls his head straight back. He also can just be pressured back to the cage. He's like too comfortable backing up and kind of trapping himself at moments when he should be a guy that's fighting in the middle of the cage using his length that way. I do like his kicking game, especially when he's forcing guys back. He loves like push kicks, kind of keep his distance, a good high kick. He's also good at following his kicks to kind of crash the pocket, unload some big shots. You mentioned his clinch work. I think it's actually one of his strengths. He uses his size really well. You talked about the the knees and the elbows. I also like that he'll like get a clinch in and just like palm in the airs, which is really hurts. Because of his length, he can get his knees up really good. Underrated offensive wrestler. I mean, you mentioned, I mean, his takedown defense. I mean, he proved his takedown. You saw, him stopping takedowns from Michael Chiesa, reversing positions. He's been categorized as a weaker defensive wrestler, but a lot of that was up at middleweight against guys much bigger that can hold him down with, stronger, kind of struggled to get his back up. But even like a little moments against Chimaev, like it was a very short time, but like he was scrambling, he was throwing it, Granby rolls and stuff to get out. He has a submission threat. I mean, he caught Tim Means in a submission. He caught Michael Chiesa with beautiful Darshak. Those are two really, I shouldn't say underrated. Michael Chiesa is not underrated, but like Tim Means is an underrated grappler. But he was subbed by Chimaev. But like Chimaev had like such a great fight. That fight was so weird. They took him on days' notice and everything. So he also Holland has a great chin. I mean, he's been blasted by some good strikers. It keeps coming. This fight is fire, man, and we see it very similar. If Holland just wrestles, he could, win something. He could catch a submission. But again, I think Holland going to limit his opportunity of winning because he wants to do a spectacular. His ego will get in the way. He'll want to slug it out on the feet. And because of that, I'm taking Page. I think he's faster. I think he's more accurate. I think he hits harder. I think he's harder to hit too. Holland has never been knocked out, so he could. I mean, if anybody's ever going to knock him out, it would be Michael Page. But I think he's going to make it through a decision. I just see Page showing that he has a little bit left in the tank, and he wins by decision.
That brings us to the co-main event of UFC 299. A lightweight matchup between former interim champ Dustin Poirier and red-hot rising contender Benoit Saint-Denis. Poirier, the 35-year-old Louisiana native, is 29-8 with 1 no contest overall. He is 21-7 with 1 no contest in the UFC. He is 13-4 with 1 no contest at lightweight. He conducted the final part of his WEC career and the first part of his UFC career as a severely dehydrated 145-pounder. He moved up to 155, and he has generally prospered since then, making it all the way to an interim title and a unification bout with Khabib Nurmagomedov, which did not go well for him. But even since that fight, he is 4-2, though he did lose his last time out. He fought most recently in the headliner of UFC 291 back in July of last year, facing off against Justin Gaethje for the BMF title and losing by second-round head kick. So he's looking to bounce back from that, prove himself not only still a BMF of some sort, but still a factor in the lightweight title picture, and he's going to have to do it against Saint-Denis. 28-year-old Frenchman is 13-1 with 1 no contest overall. He is 5-1 in the UFC. He's 5-0 at lightweight. He made a short notice debut at the UFC's 2021 Halloween card against Eliseu Zaleski dos Santos. Coming in on short notice, up a weight class, he took an absolutely horrific beating from Eliseu Capoeira, worst beating of the year, one of the ones that caused controversy over whether his corner should have stopped the fight, over whether the ref should have stopped the fight. The ref in that fight got yanked from the rest of the card, so you know at least how the promotion felt about it. But from that inauspicious beginning, he has dropped to his natural weight class and rattled off 5 straight finishes within the first 2 rounds against Nicolas Stolze, Gabriel Miranda, Ismael Bonfim, Thiago Moises, and Matt Frivola. The most recent of those, the Frivola fight, was at UFC 295 last November. He knocked him out with a head kick in just 90 seconds. Here, Saint-Denis gets a step up to a fight that, if he wins, will propel him right into the title picture. Your favorite is minus 180. Your underdog is plus 150. Who are they, Keith?
No, Poirier is the favorite.
Your favorite, Benoit Saint-Denis, minus 180. Dustin Poirier, plus 150.
Wow.
Tell me how you see this one going. Dustin Poirier hasn't been this big an underdog in a non-title. I'm not even going to look, but I'm going to guess he hasn't been this big an underdog in a non-title fight in probably 7 or 8 years.
Maybe Connor. Was Connor favorite over him in the second fight? Obviously not the third one, but maybe the second one. I mean, he just had
That's
that.
a good.
He had that spectacular finish, real quick finish of Cerrone right before that. I'm just.
I'll take a look, but
Okay.
go ahead and start your breakdown.
So this is a really fun fight. Hey, I'll give this credit. Like Saint Denis called for a big fight, and he got it. So I mean, the UFC's backing this guy. I'm surprised that Poirier took the fight. Not that I'm not saying he's scared of him or anything like that. Like definitely not. Dustin Poirier's not. There's not a human alive that Dustin Poirier is scared of. More of what does it do for Poirier's career?
Yeah,
because he's such a. I mean, he's fought Conor McGregor 3 times. He's fought Justin Gaethje. He's twice. He's fought. Habib.
He's a 35-year-old man that knows he has a limited number of fights left, and he's now an entrepreneur and a philanthropist and a family man on top of everything else. He has to ask, what's in it for me?
Yeah, I mean, he's not got to right. He's not. I mean, I think he's kind of faced the fact that he'll never be a UFC champion. Not count interim. Is he one of the greatest fighters to never win a UFC title? Absolutely. Is he going to be one of these UFC Hall of Famers who haven't won a title? Did they even win the BMF or anything? Absolutely. I mean, for a guy who's a featherweight, he's a big dude. He's not a small lightweight.
No.
He's that's like when people are saying, why would Poirier go up to fight Colby Covington? He ain't gonna be small. He's gonna be the bigger guy. I still think that makes more sense for his career right now than a fight against Saint Denis. I mean, it makes great sense for Saint Denis. Poirier southpaw. I mean, good volume. He loves to switch stances mid attack to hit different angles, which I love. I've always talked about his base. He keeps his base striking on, which generates so much power. His counter right hook is his best right. I mean, he landed it very well against Max Holloway, against McGregor. I mean, I love the body shots he threw against Eddie Alvarez in their fight. I know they fought twice, but I think it was the second fight where he was crushing Eddie Alvarez with body shots. He smashed Conor McGregor with calf kicks, though he doesn't check leg kicks himself. It's something that Dan Hooker had some success against him. Legendary power. I mean, there's this famous meme where it just shows guys that have faced Dustin Poirier and how he just bushes up their face when it's all done. Like one of those before and after pictures for all his fights. Not much of an offense wrestler. If he gets taken down, if he gets a takedown, it's usually something he's battling and clinch, and then it's only he just drops down on the legs. It's what he did to Conor McGregor. He has been taken down in many fights. I mean, Nurmagomedov, Eddie Alvarez, Dan Hooker, Chandler, those guys have taken him down. We've talked about this a million times. He's a guy that jumps for guillotines, which makes it even easier to take him down. The thing about him is you can't, and I've actually said this to him in an interview with him, you can't. His best attribute is his heart, something you can't see. I mean, I always think about the close fights he's had where he's dug deep. I mean, late stoppages against Eddie Alvarez, the first fight against Justin Gaethje, the Michael Chandler fight, the late round stoppages of Dan Hooker, just something that he does. He finds a way to get it done when it's under pressure. He's he'd be like that. He's like that freaking kicker that if you missed a field goal, your team loses, but he's got to drill the 60-yarder to win. And I love how I asked him about that, and he just said, "Dude, that's fighting. Coming, rising to the moment under pressure and under the hard times." And he's like, "That's just fighting." And I'm like, it was very profound but simple, and I just love this dude. The concern I have with Dustin Poirier is what it'd be normal, especially after coming off a knockout loss, is have all these wars, the Eddie Alvarez fights, the Gaethje's, the McGregor loss, the Habib, all these things. How much of a toll has it taken on him? And at his age, his one great ability about him was always his ability to recover and continue to fight. And after getting knocked out with Gaethje, you wonder if it's still there. Is this going to be the beginning of where we see Poirier get knocked out 2 in a row, then 3 in a row? I hope not. I really do. Saint Denis, dude's really improved and impressed since he's joined the UFC, looking better and better. I mean, he's a great athlete, very explosive, moves well, southpaw with high volume, just walks down his opponents with pressure, fighting with a lot of confidence, fast hands, he's got serious power, good kicking game. I love his high kick. I mean, he perfectly timed Matt Frevola with a high kick when he was trying to escape a scramble. He is hittable though. He keeps his chin high in the air, lacks head movement. But I mean, I was just talking about how tough Poirier is. I mean, Zaleski Dos Santos did him in his UFC debut. I mean, legendary how tough the guy is. You look at him; he's a very physically strong guy. He can use that in the clinch, battle in the clinch. He has a judo background, so he likes some upper body takedowns. He has some good back. He's got 9 subs, something we don't really talk about for a guy who's now this dynamic striker. He will jump for a sub instead of trying to stuff takedowns, which is an issue. When he was taken down, he did sweep Matt Frevola in his last fight, so I like that. And I go back to that like Thiago Moises fight. His ground and pound in that fight was incredible. And this is a fun battle. This is a massive step up in competition for Saint Denis. Can he take that step up? That's a question that's going to be asked. Is Poirier still elite, or is this the beginning of the decline? That's going to kind of be asked. I think the answer is probably somewhere in the middle for all of them. So I'm going to go with Vegas. I'm going to say Denis is able to do it. I'm worried about Poirier's chin. I think Saint Denis might at this point be too fast for him. I say he lands some hard kicks over and over again, and eventually lands something big, maybe a high kick or something. I'm going to say Saint Denis. I just feel like this is a passing of the torch moment. I think Saint Denis is going to do a spectacular. I want to say Saint Denis wins by second round TKO.
Yeah, I like the breakdown there. It's so much of what has made Dustin Poirier great for so long is tough to draw up in X's and O's, and you kind of alluded to that. And I think I said this. I mean, I've probably said it ahead of several of his fights, and I can't remember who pointed it out to me. But it's in the same way that you say, well, he's 5'9", 155. Like, that's not that big, and it's just different when you're in front of him. To describe his style, it's like, at his best, he's a slip and rip boxer who does his best work in the pocket. That doesn't explain just how nasty he is in there, and it's because it's things that only kind of show up in slow motion replay. He's done so well over the years, just being in there in the phone booth and just having the instincts, the peripheral vision, the presence of mind to just slip shots, just let things roll off him and come back, and his opponent can't do the same, and he wins those exchanges. Like,
and the balls to do it. The balls to stand there to do
yeah, and several guys at American Top Team have said, like, when the bullets are flying, like, there's no one you want in there more than Dustin Poirier. And there are other fighters that have been like that. And well, at heavyweight, Derek Lewis was that way. Like, he was like, I can stand in the phone booth with you, and I'm going to slip, I might get hit a few times, but I'm going to slip your best shots. My chin will withstand the rest, and I'm going to hit you with something you can't come back from. And that worked for him until he lost a step, and all of a sudden he started losing to the Tai Tuivasas of the world in the situations where he used to thrive. That's what concerns me about Poirier, because a style that depends on chin and reflexes to the extent that his has, when it goes, it's going to go fast. And it makes me think of something. I was a guest on a podcast that shall go nameless a year or two ago, and one of my co-panelists was Jed Michel, and he threw out the idea that we were talking about Gaethje, Poirier, Chandler, and he said, I think they're actually all on their way to shot, but we won't realize it for a couple of years because they keep fighting each other. But once they break out of that little circle and they start fighting younger guys outside, we're going to realize how much those 3 guys have slowed. And that was probably close to 2 years ago. I wasn't sure whether I agreed with him at the time, but the way he got knocked out by Gaethje made me think that he might have had something. And if he's right, then I'm with you here, because Saint Denis is not the guy you want to take on if you've lost a step.
Yeah. So can I just add it to a point? I think there's some truth to that, somewhat, because I think the argument would have been for Gaethje to lose to Fiziev, and he showed that he still had some left.
Mm-hmm.
Like if that
Yeah.
was true, he would have lost that fight.
Yeah, and of all of them, Gaethje would have been the one that I would have thought would fall off the fastest, and instead he's the one, surviving the back and forth first round.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Poirier.
That's a really good point. But also a thing that happens is they take a step back. They're facing those upper guys because they've already started to lose. Like he's facing Saint Denis because he lost.
Yeah,
and that's why Gaethje isn't. Yeah, that's why
right.
Gaethje's, Holloway and maybe a title shot.
Yeah, and Holloway's another guy that you could put in that conversation.
Chandler, Chandler. Who knows, that poor guy.
Connor, I sent you a letter, but you ain't call me. But if Poirier has lost a step, and I think it's undeniable that he's lost at least a little off the top gear, Saint Denis is not the guy you want to take on. Like he is he's definitely the next generation. I mean, he's 7 years younger, which is a long time in MMA terms in general, and MMA below 205-pound terms in particular. And he's bigger, he's faster, he's got that kind of growing confidence born of demonstrated ability that Poirier in his prime showed. Like he feels like a fighter on the rise, a man of destiny, and if he beats Poirier, which I'm with you, it's going to be something nasty. He's going to get to Poirier early and often, and we're going to realize that Poirier is slowed a bit, and Poirier won't be able to take the shots that he might have been able to take a couple of years ago. I would be different just for the sake of being different, but round 2 actually sounds about right to me. Give me a Benoit Saint Denis by second round KO. It's probably going to be something highlight reel, and he'll call for a title shot afterwards. And while he might not get it, I don't think anybody's going to laugh. With that, we come to the main event of UFC 299, a bantamweight title fight between your champ, Sugar Sean O'Malley, and the challenger, Marlon Cheeto Vera. O'Malley, the 29-year-old Montana native, now by way of Arizona, is 17-1 with 1 no contest overall. He is 9-1 with 1 no contest. He's joining the UFC as an alum of the second season of Dana White's Contender Series. He is on a 6-fight unbeaten streak, a 2-fight win streak. He is the reigning champ, having unseated Aljamain Sterling at UFC 292 last August with a second-round knockout. Plenty of people clamoring for a shot at him. Obviously, Merab Dvalishvili sitting on a long win streak. Already some heat between him, his camp, and O'Malley. But it's Vera that gets the call, in part because the two have some history together. 31-year-old Ecuadorian by way of Southern California is 23-8-1 overall. He is 15-7 in the UFC. He did win his last time out. It was at that same UFC 292 where he took a unanimous decision over Pedro Munhoz. Prior to that, he had lost a decision to Corey Sandhagen in the headliner of UFC on ESPN 43 last March. So Vera, just 1 win, not even a streak, but that's enough to get the call from O'Malley, who is apparently revenge-minded. They first fought back in August of 2020. A back-and-forth kickboxing match ended in a flash late in the first round when O'Malley went down from an ankle injury, and then Vera jumped right on him, pounded him out on the ground. O'Malley claims it was a freak injury. Vera claims it was due to the calf kicks he landed. Whether either is the truth or the truth is somewhere in between, here we are. O'Malley, favorite. He's minus 240, Vera plus 200. Keith, this is it. O'Malley's first title defense. By the Matt Hughes rule, he is only really champ if he wins on Saturday night. Does he get it done, and how?
It is. You said he's minus 200. You said
minus 240. Vera's plus 200.
The guy who got knocked out is a minus 240 favorite. It's funny how that works. I wonder how the crowd's going to be, because being Miami, obviously it's a very, obviously I know it's a very Cuban population, but it's also just very like Latin population, and obviously Vera from Ecuador should have a lot of crowd. But I'll tell you, when O'Malley, I was there, for sure. I covered his fight against Sterling, and Boston was freaking rocking for O'Malley. And again, O'Malley, Boston, a very Irish town. So I just wonder. He seems.
I think Miami's going to eat O'Malley up. I think they'll love him.
Yeah, maybe. This fight's intriguing. So I love how the O'Malley is so confident. He really believes that he's a once in a lifetime guy, and as the more I've coached over the years, and it's not equivalent in kids to adults, but there's something about the mental game. It's a much bigger than we can ever track on paper, and I believe confidence goes such a big part of athleticism. You have to be super confident up to the even cocky, but to the cockiness has, we're not overlooking, past somebody, but that cockiness where, I'm the man, and he has that. He's a long and lengthy striker, a fantastic athlete. I mean, he flows between stances so well. He's explosive, very quick twitch striker, quick hands, extremely accurate, crisp jab, tons of variety in his striking. He's one of the best at hiding his right hand, like doing stuff with his left hand to hide that piston that he's going to throw that right hand. He's so good at beating his opponent to the punch. He's good at picking up his opponent's timing and rhythm to land his counters. Some of that he's laying traps, trying to see what you're doing. He does well to set up shots with him. You see him; he's always feinting. He's good at slipping shots but staying in position to still land his own counters. Though he will sometimes just pull his head straight back to avoid shots. He drops his hands to slip shots, which is a concern. He did it a lot against Pedro Munhoz. He did it a lot against Marlon Vera in his first fight. He's one of the hardest pound for pound hitters in the UFC. I mean, the guy could absolutely cry. I mean, he hurt Pedro Munhoz. I'm sorry, Pereira many times in that fight. I mean, he just blasted Sterling. I mean, I know Sterling was complaining about the stoppage. It might have been a little bit on the other side, but still, he blasted, put Sterling down with a big shot. He's got power in both of his hands and from both stances. He sets up his spinning attacks. He's one of the guys who does spinning attacks. I don't mind because he really sets up very, very quickly and easily. Big concern is he doesn't check leg kicks. There have been two fights where it's been a major issue. First was Pedro Munhoz. First was Vera, and then Pedro Munhoz. But obviously, the Vera one is the one that it jumps out to me even more as an issue. Not much of a grappler so far in the UFC. I mean, he was taken down by Pereira 6 times in that fight, which is obviously a huge concern. But he did stop takedowns from Aljamain Sterling in their brief exchanges. One thing I'll say about Jan taking him down, yeah, it looks bad. But on the flip side, he turned a guy who's known for his boxing into a wrestler because of how hard this guy can hit, how precise he is. He was always pretty good at creating scrambles, getting back to me. He's hard to hold down. And he showed a pretty good gas tank against Jan. Vera's also a longer and lengthier guy. He's a bigger guy, southpaw. He's a builder. He's a guy who gets stronger as the fight goes on. Some of that has to do with him being a historically slow starter. He's had moments where he just hasn't matched his opponent's time. Like almost seemed like he's looking for the perfect shot and just not matching the output. Perfect fight with that Corey Sandhagen. He just was not pulling trigger and just getting pieced up by Sandhagen. When he's the guy pressing forward, pressing the action, he's much better. He has serious power. I mean, he dropped Dominic Cruz 3 times in the fight before knocking him out. He's got mean kicks. He has a lot of defensive issues. Very hittable guy. He keeps his hands low. I keep going back to Sandhagen fight. Sandhagen looked spectacular, just picking him apart. Too fast for him. He will wrestle a little, but not a wrestler, more of a round winner with it. He's a weak defensive wrestler, but he's a pretty good overall grappler. He can catch a submission. If he's on top, he's got a ferocious attitude. he wants to hurt you. He's got mean ground and pound. He's got strong BJJ. He's got some slick back takes. He got 8 submissions on his record. So, and he'll actually play BJJ out of the back. He'll looking for subs off his back. So going back to Marlon Vera's last fight against Pedro Munhoz, MMA Decisions had a 14-3 for Munhoz. Most people thought he lost. That said, I think styles make fights. And when I think of Vera versus O'Malley, there's 3 really clear avenues of victory, in my opinion, for him. The first one is what we saw last time, just keeps kicking on O'Malley's legs. O'Malley doesn't make the adjustment and just pushes his leg until O'Malley's, which obviously is O'Malley's power and a lot of things he can do. That's the first avenue of victory. Second one is just try to wrestle him, winning rounds with his wrestling, holding O'Malley down for long periods. And the third is just not taking over with volume. He's crowding O'Malley, closing the distance, kind of more taking into a brawl, landing some big shots, and then he just lands one of those huge ones. So those are 3 where I can see it being a really good night for Vera. That said, when I write down I'm going to call him Brandon Vera, sorry, Marlon Vera's skills, there isn't anything when I look at Marlon Vera that I think is elite. I don't think he's looked good in his last 3 fights. I mean, he lost to I thought he lost to Pedro Munhoz, excuse me. He got just dominated by Sandhagen. I mean, it says split decision, but that fight was not close.
No.
And even in a fight like with Dominick Cruz, who was hurting, I mean, that's a past prime Dominick Cruz who, he was hurting him. He dropped him. But most of the exchanges, he was losing. He was struggling with the speed. And because he had that power, he was able to kind of pull out a victory. Yeah, I mean, O'Malley's lack of checking kicks is a concern. But one thing I'll say about Sterling, he made adjustments against Sterling, where I think in this fight he's going to make adjustments. A big thing he's probably thinking about is those calf kicks, blocking them. I expect him to maybe make adjustments. I think he's going to come out firing. And I think he's going to do something that nobody has done so far, and that's knock Marlon Vera out. I say he's going to land a big shot. I think he's got the power. I think he drops Vera, and I think he follows up with counters once the fight hits the ground, kind of similar to what happened to Sterling. I'm gonna say O'Malley does in the second round. Give me O'Malley by second round TKO.
I like the breakdown there, and you make an interesting point because obviously, on paper, O'Malley has several elite to super elite world-class skills where, Vera is tough and well-rounded. And on the one hand, I mean, we're not that far removed from Strickland beating Adesanya, where, it looked like a terrible matchup for Strickland. And then all of a sudden it didn't matter. Just, marching forward, leaning on a couple of fundamental things, just completely took Adesanya out of his game. And Strickland made it look surprisingly easy. Like there's part of me that thinks Marlon Vera could do that with a couple of takedown attempts, not even getting the takedowns, just takedown attempts to give O'Malley something to think about, and then just hacking away at the legs. But in order to do that, in order to leverage those few advantages to follow any of those routes to victory, he has to survive the fire coming in his other way, coming his way. And my real concern is him being able to do that, because he's always been a slow starter. He's turned gun shy a few times, especially in recent fights. And the way he was gun shy against Corey Sandhagen, against a taller, rangier fighter who punished him for trying to close the distance, that's exactly the kind of thing that O'Malley could do to him. I'm reminded of another high level fight. Actually, before we even had the Shillen and Duffy show, I did a preview for whichever card it was that had McGregor versus Cerrone on it. And it was with TJ DeSantis, and I forget who else was on it, but like everyone else was pointing out all the ways that Cerrone could beat McGregor. And I said, all those things require Cerrone to survive the first round. And I don't think he does. I said, Cerrone's a slow starter, and not slow starter in like the Petr Yan or John Jones, like I'm measuring my opponent's sense, but like for the first 3 minutes of the fight, I look like I didn't warm up in the back room. And if a guy jumps right on me, like, Rafael dos Anjos, like I might be out of there, before I even get a chance to get untracked and Connor's a fast starter. Like I feel that way about this one. Like Vera has valid routes to victory, but they all would require him to do things that he hasn't really done well and has gotten, if anything, worse at recently. And that's mainly coming out hot and holding his own early, because I think O'Malley's going to be motivated to make a statement here. And even so, he does like to size up his opponent and get ready to draw a beat on him, but he doesn't typically take very long to do so. Like if he feels he has an advantage in the striking, he starts, springing the traps he lays within the first round. Yeah, I'm with you. I think we see something we haven't seen before. I think we see Marlon Vera knocked out, and I think we might even see it like late in the first round. Could be totally wrong on this one, but I feel as though this matchup really favors O'Malley. And since their first fight, O'Malley, I think, has like looked a little better each time out, has shored up, the deficiencies in his game, while Vera has arguably looked worse. Yeah, give me O'Malley by a knockout late in the first round here. Just walks Vera right onto a right hand, kind of the same way he did Eddie Wineland, feint. All of a sudden, Wineland's walking right into a right hand he didn't see, and he's staring at the lights. Sean O'Malley remains champ. My call as well. And that is it. The Sherdog Radio Network preview for UFC 299. I've been Ben. He's been Keith. If this is your first time watching or listening to one of our previews, first of all, thank you. We hope you enjoyed it. We do our best to bring you as good a mix of in-depth analysis and occasional historic or humorous asides as you'll find anywhere in the business. Please do like, subscribe, drop us a comment. Keith and I both man the comment section. We'd love to hear your take on these fights. We picked a lot of upsets on this one, like I think about a third of the fights. So if you think we're off our rocker about any of those, let us know. And if it turns out that you're right and we're wrong, we will give you all your flowers on the recap. Join us for the recap. We are live on the Sherdog YouTube page about 10 minutes after the main event. Keith takes the captain's chair. We'll talk about all 14 of these fights from the top all the way down to the bottom, going over what was good, what was bad, what was surprising, what was controversial. There's always something. Talking about what's next for some of the notable winners as well as losers, and talking with you because the live chat is open that whole time. So we are taking your questions, your comments, and your hot takes in real time. We have a growing community of friends that hang out with us and have a laugh after the fights, including somebody that we're pretty sure is Martin Budai in disguise. We would love to have you join. Between now and then, thank you once again for listening. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, and by all means, enjoy these fights.
To the sea. Make your bed of fairy tales while you're hunting